You mean
Go up and see it.
I think you're literally saying that Africa, the place with all these beautiful things, they called it America and said it was theirs, but really it's Africa. That's what you're saying?
No, I'm saying Africa's right here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We have more land. We have more pyramids. We have more fucking better animals than over there. We have more fucking what's this shit called? Resources.
Resources.
The Nile.
I've
the
never
Nile
even
River,
heard
the
that
Mississippi
theory.
River's just
The Nile?
Seven things more so than the Nile River.
Wait.
Too.
When would they have flipped it in Africa? Because
it's the Western Canaanite culture.
No, not why. I know they would have, and they'll do anything if they, and that would be a great V for them. But
let me say one thing, and I thought about this the other day. That if they have us thinking, if we're the people that the chosen people, and I'm not religious, and they have us thinking that we're from somewhere else, then that will automatically stop us from going within to see our power. Type shit.
We agree. I'm gonna be quiet for a second. I want to find the clip since you said we being the chosen people. Let me see if I can find it. I'm on mute for a second.
Okay.
Well, none of that is true. Israel, like Israel is a people, not a place.
By the way, it's always good to be skeptical of historical narratives. Don't get me wrong, but there is such a thing as like impotent skepticism, where you're just pointing at something and being like, "Well, some of the history is made up, therefore I reject all."
No,
of
I have
it
legal
and substitute
documents
my
that I
own.
come with. So what you're doing is exactly what you said. So how ironic.
No, I'm saying if you're going to be skeptical, have a real criticism.
No, I have legal documents. I'm just going to go with that.
Being able to discern when it was actually made up versus when it was real and when it's evidence-based.
How you know I haven't done
actually
that?
shows that you can criticize that thing.
Is your whole conversation making assumptions?
Well, kind of the way you described it was like, oh, well, they make shit up, right? Therefore,
if I'm coming with legal documents and stuff that got fucking
legal documents
down as law, how is that skepticism?
Law under our current administrations or
doesn't
like former
matter
laws?
what administrations, these things got written down into law. It's still law.
Like during Latin times.
It doesn't matter if does that stop it from happening?
If it's in a different language, especially an older language that isn't spoken as commonly nowadays, I may ask if there might be some translational differences.
No, you're not. No, don't do this. Like this one right here. Like
you talking about that? When you were talking about earlier about Transportation Act.
But that's the status quo history.
No, it's not.
Do they teach that in school? In our high schools?
Not necessarily this specific act, but that convicts were forced to North America and Australia. Like
they didn't go to Australia till like the 1800s. Till the Constitution got in place, pretty much.
Do you think that any of those people actually established colonies that would have led to Native Americans and the thousands of years of history that they
that's skepticism, and that would show you that, or you can go to the 1790 Naturalization Act. We're talking like after they were indentured. Think about how they were slaves and they got awarded land. Like they were indentured servants, they wasn't slaves. That's why I say we went through the worst type of slavery. And obviously, and that's just one instance where your ancestors are immigrants. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes down to it, the transatlantic.
So all this tells me is that is that while like First Nations and people were always here, they might have had more white genetics in their gene pool than we assumed prior to.
Did you not just read the paper? They were bringing 50,000 people a year.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Gabriel Carbo back at it again. What's going on, NPCs? Good to have you here today. In this special episode of at NPC the Game YouTube. Today's episode, thus Zarathustra. Thus spoke Zarathustra. There we go. Which is a book by Friedrich Nietzsche. It's a very important book. I definitely the more I read it, the more I realize it's a heavy hitter, because it's definitely shifting this whole following the rules that was like the main way to do things in the past in the Western mind, to actually creating the self. And I think this is why it's a cornerstone for modern consciousness evolution, and how it relates to what we're doing here. And that's why today's definitely a special episode. And we have one of my good friends, my ally, the Machine Lies, who knows an awful lot about this great book and other things that are relate to it. And speaking of allies, it's really good to have allies. Shout out to Shadow Buddha, my brother, Ragamuffins, Blessed Up, an ally, another ally, Lizard Tree. Yeah. Modern Man Lost Again, an ally. Yeah. Reddington, an ally, for sure. A lot of you guys. Sometimes it gets fewer and fewer allies. Allies are good to have, bro. You might say, like, hey, you're glazing. But screw that, man. That's why is that like a weirdo Zoomer millennial thing? Like, you can't give shout out to your homies. I mean, you should have respect your allies and acknowledge them. I mean, I'm gonna big bro you guys right now in the sense that, be good to your allies, your friends that you work with, because, I mean, let's say they make it. I mean, they may retract the ladder and help you out, pull you up. And I mean, definitely you should be doing things that are right, because that's the right thing to do, not just to get something. But I know how some of you fools are. The only way you'll do something is if somebody does something to you for you. But even though you're just supposed to do it anyway, because it's the right thing to do. And yeah, man, don't forget your allies, bro. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. This is one of the biggest jewels we'll have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, so Nietzsche, thus spoke Zarathustra, and our ally, my friend, Machine Lies. What's going on, brother? How's it going?
Yeah, blessings. Yeah, it was
Good
fine.
to have you, man. Yeah. Speaking of fire, the white fire. That's the first language, first religion, main big religion, right? Zarathustraism, like the white fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
Yeah, it's one of the most ancient religions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Zarathustra is another name for the prophet Zoroaster.
Yeah.
Right. Who some people believe that King Cyrus, right, who took the Jays out of Babylon, that he was a follower of Zoroaster. Right. So this was a prophet that existed. Right, that was a prophet of the Zoroastrian religion, right? So the Zoroastrian religion is older than this, prophet, right? Supposedly, right?
And this time it was during the Bronze Age. This was going on. The religion when it originated.
Yeah, this would be like, like close to like, I guess like 400 BC or something like that, right? During the time, I think so, right? Because, simply because there's works, right? Like, for example, the philosopher Xenophon produced a work called the Cyropedia, in which he talks about King Cyrus and how he's a righteous leader, right? And how, he gives, several prescriptions on princes on how to rule, their subjects by looking at the rule of King Cyrus, right? So I suspect that King Cyrus existed around that time, right? At some point, right? The figure that's mentioned in the Bible, and he was purported to be a follower of the prophet Zoroaster. So it could be like around that time that the religion received a huge update.
Yeah. So, and then then make it to pop culture references, because I mean this is our modern day myths too, in a way, reshaping. The movie 300, if I'm not mistaken, that was King Cyrus. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. But it was a Persian king, and most likely they would have been following some type of version of that religion, huh?
Yeah, I think it was Xerxes.
Xerxes, that's
or
right.
something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
you got
sure
it.
because I never.
No, you're
I
right.
never saw the movie, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I heard one thing that the Greeks, that they admired the Persians was for their they said they were the best and excellent at like archery, horse riding, and also telling the truth. That was a big thing, I think, allegedly. Like with them, they had some virtues, right? Which was different because, if I'm not mistaken, like that Bronze Era was crazy, right? Because that's like Conan the Barbarian type stuff. Pretty brutal, a lot of wars and people, accumulating a lot of wealth and protecting it and trying to get more, huh? Back then.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the Alcibiades, right? Socrates says to Alcibiades, and people think that Plato, may have never composed this. It's disputed whether he composed this, right? But he's kind of saying to him, you're nothing compared to to the princess of Persia, right? He says you don't have the same genetic composition, basically. That the princess of Persia isn't going to fight against you because you're not her equal.
Yeah.
You're just a citizen of a small sandlot named Greece, right? So you could tell that. Yeah, so you could tell, like, just by Plato's writings, that they thought the Spartans and Persians were really incredible warriors and basically a sight to behold, whereas your average Athenian citizen had not achieved that sort of level of discipline and hardness. Right?
Yeah. I mean, damn, that's crazy. When I think of the when I think of you said a sandlot, I think that's where I take my dog to pee while I live in the city, in the inner city. that's not cool, man. But with that said, the Zoroaster and Nietzsche, I think Nietzsche, there's a lot of things. I'll jump over the place. The whole thing about like the overman concept by Nietzsche, which was not like an ideal man or man at its pinnacle, at its best. That idea, and maybe you could speak on that, but also and how like it seemed like Zoroaster was like a bridge between, man as beast, as an animal, and the overman, and like So I want to ask you about that, and also like how much progress do you think man has made since the Nietzsche time, too?
Yeah, well, I think Nietzsche would basically say that we've made no progress, right? Which sounds kind of confusing because he's talking to humanity, saying that there's this version of the man, right, called the Ubermensch, right? There's also a guy called the Last Man.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Talk about that.
So this is to be juxtaposed with another figure called the Last Man of history, right? Which is kind of like a common everyman, right? It's like a guy that, really thinks of himself as a beginning and end, right? Has no historical compass, right? And this is a line from Nietzsche in the Antichrist, right? I'll read it now. He says, mankind surely does not represent an evolution toward a better or stronger or higher level. So there it is right there, right? Okay. He says, as progress is now understood, he says, this quote unquote progress is merely a modern idea. Nietzsche really didn't like modern ideas, right? He really thought like older ideas, classical ideas, and that's kind of like why he's putting his words in the mouth of this ancient prophet, right?
Zoroaster. Yeah, exactly, that's a long time ago. Removed.
Right. So look at what with what kind of ambivalence he makes his statement, right? He says this quote unquote progress is merely a modern idea, which is to say a false idea, he says. And then he says the European of today and his essential worth falls far below the European of the Renaissance. The process of evolution does not necessarily mean elevation, enhancement, and strengthening. And he says, true enough, that it succeeds in isolated and individual cases in various parts of the earth and under the most widely different cultures. And in these cases, a higher type certainly manifests, right? The Ubermensch, right? Something which, compared to mankind in the mass, appears as a sort of Superman, right? An Ubermensch, right? That's the word. Right? Such happy strokes of high success have been possible, will remain possible, perhaps for all time to come. Even whole races, tribes, and nations may occasionally represent such lucky accidents. So he's saying it doesn't have to be an individual occurrence. It could be occurrence within a culture or a nation.
Yeah, then the guy that just had a baby. Well, first of all, shout out to Ben, whose birthday was yesterday. He's 8 years old, and his birthday week twin, the mustache man, his birthday was 420. He seemed like he thought maybe he was that race, that Uberman, huh? Superman, might have. That what you just spoke on, huh? It's not like he was maybe been motivated by Nietzsche a little bit, maybe, huh?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it says, very interesting how you said. So why you got into a little bit right now? Why do you think Nietzsche did choose this Persian prophet as a mouthpiece? You mentioned you didn't like modern times, but go ahead.
Yeah, you saw his sort of dislike for modern sort of European culture, right? And he kind of likes, the Renaissance. He likes the Greeks. So he's a sort of a neoclassicist. So his whole idea, like he thinks that cultural refinement doesn't necessarily have to happen with like a high level of technology.
Okay.
Right? So he thinks that like really refined cultures existed all throughout the past. He even studied Greek. He was a philologist, so he studied languages, and so he could read the Greeks, texts like Plato, right? He could also study the Bible in its original Greek.
Yeah.
So these two things, right, the Bible and Plato, had a profound effect on Nietzsche's philosophy, right? He started to think of these sort of cosmic ideas, right? But he started to turn against this notion that goodness and poverty and these things represent truth, right? He thought the truth was much more profound than that, right? And the truth could come with the side of sort of destruction, and and it was like more robust of a thing than just being in line with goodness and pity. And he kind of thought the life of Socrates and the life of Jesus, that these were like the biggest mistakes in like Western culture, that people sort of focused on these ideas. Yeah. Right. He thought this the sort of heroic attitude was lost because we focused on these people who made this huge sacrifice, right, for knowledge and morality, instead of sort of more heroic ideals, right?
Okay, well, then I can understand that. You said that these people kind of like gave themselves up instead of, like, my words, like, creating the self, cultivating the self. Jesus for sure, and Socrates. But why would Nietzsche have such beef with guys like Kant? Because he seemed like he has like some beef with him too, or at least pushback on some of his ideas.
Yeah, he didn't like the idea of universalism. And the fact that you could have these universal values, right? He thought that it created the sort of average type of person, right? He thought, he thought all sort of universalism was pointing to a common type of person, right? Which he opposed.
You can excuse my break it in, because we're doing the bachelor level right here, where we have the Great Machine, he has. Yeah, I appreciate you slowing it down with us. The Kant, like, can you explain some of his ideas? Because he's someone I keep coming back to, because my love for existentialism and whatnot. But regardless, it always comes back to Kant. Like, why was Kant such a special figure? Someone that we should know.
Because he tried to salvage morality and art in the face of empiricism. Right. So what he tried to do is he tried to unify certain principles, right, that would point to an abstract realm, right, where there's no such thing that exists as pure reason. That's why his work is called Critique of Pure Reason. Right. So he's saying that these abstract principles sort of are the cause of how we start to think about things. Right. So he said a priori framework is necessary for empirical knowledge. Right. So basically his whole contribution is that he said there's things that you can't prove that you need to get to things that you can prove, and you prove all the time, right? So yeah, so Kant's whole universal, right, imperative, right, meant that morality cannot be touched by these sort of so-called empirical laws, because it it sort of belongs to an abstract realm of reasoning that precedes logic, right, and reason.
Right. And so Kant also, am I correct? Is he the one also they called it the second Copernican revolution? Like where he was actually even though he was into morality and whatnot, he saw the human as the pinnacle, the self as something important. Whereas before it was they put God above that and all that. Or am I confusing him with Hume? I don't know.
Like somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody said that that Kant had performed the same thing for morals as Isaac Newton had done.
That's
right,
it.
for for like all this scientific analysis. And also Kant wrote a letter about Benjamin Franklin where he called him the new Prometheus.
Wow.
So he was aware of the Enlightenment. He was aware of the American Revolution, right? He was aware of some of the changes that were going on, and he was aware of the new attitudes towards science and technology, right? And he sort of supported all of it, right? Which is really interesting because, Kant took a sort of Swedenborgian view, right? That the New Jerusalem would sort of descend on Earth, right? And we would live in this new age, right? Swedenborg was kind of like one of the main thinkers of like the new age, right? And Kant and William Blake and all these guys were sort of followers of Emanuel Swedenborg, right?
Okay,
I heard of him. This like world peace, right? So Kant believed in world peace, right? Nietzsche didn't think that was possible, right? See, Nietzsche was a follower of Heraclitus. He thought that war and strife is the father of, change and human civilization and all things that emerge, right?
Okay, yeah, shout out to Dimitri. What's up, Justin? How's it going? He said R.I.P. David Wilcox. Yeah, I heard about that. I was very shocked. Frank Monday was reporting on that. Man, that's
there's going to be tons more conspiracies about that in 2 weeks about how
and I even saw a local news story in LA station where they were saying like so many 10 scientists have died. So, like in these, I'll call them alternative researchers. Sounds like, and even I think even the White House commented on it, like saying that this raises eyebrows or it's troubling. Here's the thing, man. I want to go conspiracy for a second. I wouldn't doubt it if like these people were maybe deleted or whatever, just so people would talk about that, so it's like some real stuff can be put under their nose, and whatnot. So. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on, but I think this is why like conversations like this are important for me and others because the self, man, that's a very interesting concept that a lot of people neglect, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So so what would you call thus Zarathustra? Would you call it Thus Spoke Zarathustra? Would you call it a poem, a philosophical work? New religious scripture? What is it? All those things?
It is what you would call an epic poem, right? Meaning that it contains architectonic elements from history and philosophy, and so on. So it is a basically on the level of epic poetry, right? And in that, it tries to stir up all sorts of legendary emotions and a new calling for humanity based on a sort of ancient promise for man, right? And so he talks about this figure that is sort of far removed from European society. He's very much a critique of European civilization, right? As I described before, he's sort of attacking some foundations and pinnacles of Western civilization, right? Like, for example, Socrates and Jesus and Rousseau, and this whole idea that pity and goodness and poverty and are sort of sublime, and part of a higher type of person, right? So he's trying to say that that there's a greater individual. Obviously, this whole idea of eternal recurrence that he brings up in Zarathustra, right, is sort of one of the main reasons I've called this episode eternal recurrence, right, or the beginningless world, is because with this model there's not only no beginning to the world, as it were, such as the ancient Greeks thought of. And I know it's a hard concept to wrap your mind around, right? Because we're so used to thinking in linear time, right? So, we're sort of taught that like a big bang happened and then the universe formed slowly over time and it formed into more dense elements. And then those dense elements formed into, complex chemicals, and those complex chemicals form life and so on and so forth, right? But he believes that actually there is no linear time. There's actually just one moment that sort of repeats itself. Right. So he says that,
like a loop.
So he says time doesn't exist. Right. And this is actually, following a quote from Heraclitus, where he says the road up and the road down are the same. Right. And so he's sort of talking about, this concept, and I have a key part, a reading from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, right? 2 readings from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and we can get up in this,
that's good.
Up in the text, and there's kind of like 2 like paragraphs, right? One is a poem that he wrote from a thing called Dionysus Dithyrambs, right? So here we will introduce ourselves to the prophet Zarathustra and what are his concerns and how he gets down, right?
How he gets down, I like that.
Yeah, because he's an interesting dude, right?
Would you say he's an overman? What Nietzsche would consider overman?
Oh yeah, he's like his guy, right?
Yeah, his guy.
Yeah, his guy. So so here is a poem that Nietzsche wrote, taking his character of Zarathustra. Right. I'm pretty sure that this is not actually from the work Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He wrote other poems where he featured this character.
Okay, right? So this is like some kind of like continue on with the story, or this is interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah. So this is an expansion into the view of who Zarathustra is. So here's a poem that Nietzsche wrote called "Among the Daughters of the Desert."
Okay.
Right. So he said, "Don't go," said the wanderer who called himself Zarathustra's shadow. "Stay with us, otherwise our old dull affliction might seize us again. That old magician has already given us his worst for our benefit, and behold, that good pious pope there has tears in his eyes and has again embarked on the sea of melancholy. These kings here may still put on a pleasant countenance, but had they no witness, I wager that for them too the wicked game would recommence. The wicked game of drifting clouds, of damp melancholy, of imposing skies, of stolen suns, of howling autumn winds, the wicked game of our own howling and cries of distress. Stay with us, Zarathustra. Here there is much concealed misery that wants to speak. Much evening, much cloud, much musty air.
Musty.
Right. You have nourished us with strong food for men and fortifying maxims. Do not let the frail, effeminate spirits seize us again for desert. You alone make the air around you strong and clear. Have I ever found such good air on earth than with you in your cave? I've seen many lands. My nose has learned to test and assess many kinds of air. But with you, my nostrils taste their greatest delight. Unless, oh, forgive an old memory. Forgive me an old after-dinner song, which I once composed the daughters of the desert. Oh, sorry, which I once composed among the daughters of the desert. So here we have the daughters of the desert, right?
Okay.
Yeah, he says, for with them, the air was equally good, clear and oriental. Oriental. Never
Asian
was
girls
I.
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, right. It's foreign from Europe, right? So he'll bring that up in a minute, right? He says, never was I farther away from cloudy, damp, melancholy old Europe, he says.
It's stagnated, right? With the ideas were stagnated as well, right?
Right. The melancholy dread, right? He's saying there's a melancholy dread, right? So he says, at that time, I loved such oriental girls and other blue skies over which no clouds and no thoughts hung. You would not
just nice and clear, right? Pure.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Instead of the cloudiness, the melancholy, right? He's and the night, right? He's saying the night is, he's comparing it to the night, right? Yeah. Yeah. So he says, at that time, I loved such oriental girls and other blue skies over which no clouds and no thoughts hung. You would not believe how dutifully they sat there when they were not dancing, deep but without thoughts, like little secrets, like ribbon riddles, like after dinner nuts. Colorful and strange, forsooth, but without clouds, riddles that let themselves be guessed. For such girls, I then conceived an after-dinner psalm. Thus spoke the wanderer who called himself Zarathustra's shadow. And before anyone answered him, he had already seized the harp of the old magician, crossed his legs and looked around, composed and wise. But with his nostrils, he drew the air slowly and inquiringly, as one tastes the new air in a foreign land. At last, he began to sing with a kind of roar. The desert grows, woe to him in whom deserts hide.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's about to really put it down right there, man. When it enters. Yeah.
Yeah, the desert grows, woe to him in whom deserts hide. Yeah. Crazy, huh?
Yeah. Woe to him in whom deserts hide. What do you think that was that going on?
It's like people who face the roughness of the desert, right? That you know, they face the desert within themselves. Right? It's like a beautiful line, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Desert it's interesting. Excuse me. It's like a canvas, man, right? It's like a canvas where anything could, like a holodeck, anything could be like put up on there and really magnified and seem pure. That's why I like movies like Star Wars when they go in the desert, Tatooine, Luke Skywalker's playing what else? Mad Max, the desert canvas, and Dune, of course. The desert is a wild place, man. And I like this is like the whole refreshing aspect because this modern life, bro, like it's just stagnated. I don't want to be stagnated, man. Like I see saw other folks around me. Like I was talking about the allies we had, like you and others. But like the people I didn't mention, they seem really stagnated. Talking about the same old things and and also depressed. Like I had a call with one of the homies yesterday, HP, and like, bro, like, man, people are hurting out here, man. People are hurting. They might not show it. They show it online, and you got to be astute to pick it up. But like, man, people are really hurting, bro. Like so, and a lot of depression right there, right?
Yeah, and the coldness, the mysteriousness, the beauty, the darkness of the desert girls that dance. That represents the opposite. It represents the new Oriental flavor, right? That's coming with the sun, right? To face your inner desert.
Right.
right? Whereas a melancholy, old, dreary, old sky of old Europe is basically holding everything back,
Yes. Yeah.
right? With that old putrid smell.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, because when people don't even take a deep breath anymore in that old melancholy dampness because it's disgusting. Even when they don't take a deep breath, but when you do have that fresh air, like when you go to a tropical place, for example, it doesn't have to be the desert. You just go, yeah. I'm sure it's nice. I've never been to the Great Lakes, like where you live, but that probably has its own nice, unique smell. Some of the nice, more scenic places, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the Upper Peninsula, you go to some of those areas, it's some of the most beautiful place I've seen ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Really, in our own backyard here in Michigan.
It's wild.
It's insanely beautiful to look at the sunset over there. In the Upper Peninsula, so many incredible colors. The sky is literally pink and blue and orange and every fucking color you can think of. It's insanity, right?
Yeah. IMD's Dresnes says, I meditate the other day. It felt good. Breathe deeply and release all my worries. Yes. What's up, Red? On the forest, the pine. Yes, that's another thing. That's like menthol, cleaning out the lungs. Now, I'm seeing like on the part 3 right here. Is this the same poem, TML? Or is it solemn?
Yeah.
Solemn? Yeah. He's bringing up Africa, man. So he's really taking us somewhere else that's foreign to most of the readers, right? In Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll read this next part and then I'll switch to a different reading here.
Okay.
It's not that long.
Yeah, I have it on the screen. I don't know if you can see it too.
Yeah, it's a little long, but not that long.
Yeah.
It ends like right there. So I'll read a little bit of this and get his head, because he is talking a lot about the Europeans here, right?
Right.
And it doesn't seem that long. He says, "Ha, solemn, a worthy beginning, solemnly African, worthy of a lion or of a moral screaming monkey, but nothing for you. You you most beloved maidens, at whose feet I, a European under palm trees, am allowed to sit. Selah, truly wonderful. Here I now sit near the desert, and yet so far from the desert again, and in no way desolate, to wit, gulped down by this smallest oasis. It just opened up, yawning its lovely mouth, the most redolent. I don't even know what that word. I've never seen that word. Of all little mouths. Then I fell in, down through among you, you most beloved maiden, Selah. Hail, hail to that whale. If he let his guest be so well off, you understand my learned allusion. Hail to his belly, if it was as lovely an oasis belly at this, yet I cast doubt on it, for I come from Europe, which is more doubt addicted than any nagging old wife. May God improve it. Amen.
It's horrible.
Here right.
Redundant means a fragrant smell that incites something.
Yeah, he's making a lot of references to the olfactory sensations, and that's characteristic of Nietzsche's writings.
Oh, so you're looking at the industrial era, huh? When all the factories and all that,
yeah, maybe it's something of that nature, right? But yeah, it's interesting how Nietzsche, unlike other writers, he's obsessed with smells, right?
So that's good, man. I forget about that, man. I forget about that.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with memory too. He's also huge. Yeah, he's a huge writer about this concept of memory, right?
Can I ask you something? There's something that your mom used to make, or your dad, like that you could smell it and it reminds you of your childhood or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think here for me, like me and my son, be bread, because there's like a little mom and pop bread bakery, like down the street. And I think that's something. I know I remember it now. I'll always remember where my house is now because of that bread smell, and everything that comes up with that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So he so he, goes in again on this smell thing, right? He says, drinking in this fairest air, my nostrils swollen like goblets. Without
Mm,
future, without
Jesus.
memories. See how the smell relates to the memory, like I just said, right?
Yeah.
Right, without future, without memories. Thus I sit here, you most beloved maidens, and watch the palm tree as it, like a dancer, bends and arches and sways at the hips. One does it too, if one watches too long, like a dancer who, as it would seem to me, has stood too long, precariously long, always, always only on one little leg. For she has forgotten, it would seem to me, the other leg. At least in vain, I sought the missing twin jewel, namely the other leg, in the holy proximity of her most beloved, most delicate, fanned and flittering and tinseled tutus. Yes, if you would, your you fair maidens, quite believe me, she has lost it. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. It is gone, gone forever, the other leg. Oh, what a shame about the lovely other leg. Where, whence may it be a lamenting forsaken, this lonely leg, perhaps in fear of a grim, yellow, blonde man lion monster, or maybe even gnawed off, nibbled off. Pitiful, alas, alas, nibbled off. Selah.
What's up with this leg symbolism?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think he's talking about the dancing and the beauty and the mystery. So I think
Okay.
the mystery of the beautiful dancing, right? I think it's
Okay.
more about the girls and so he says, "Oh, weep not, soft hearts, weep not, you date hearts, milk bosoms, you little licorice heart sacks. Be a man, Suleika, courage, courage, weep no more, pale doo-doo." Or should perhaps something fortifying, heart fortifying be called for here? An anointed maxim, a more solemn exhortation, ha up dignity. Blow,
Yeah.
blow again, below bellows of virtue. Ha! Once more roar, roar morally, roar like a moral lion before the daughters of the desert. For virtuous howling you must you most beloved maidens is more than anything European fervor, European ravenous appetite, and yet here I stand as a European. I cannot do else. God help me, amen. The desert grows, woe to him in whom deserts hide. Stone grinds against stone. The desert devours and strangles, glowing brown monstrous death stares, and chews its life is to chew. Do not forget, man, consumed by lust. You are the stone, the desert, our death.
Interesting. Woe to him.
Yeah. So the mysterious, the danger that hides within himself is juxtaposed with the beauty and the mystery and the death that's represented in the desert. Right. So and that he needs that, right? He needs this mystery and this beauty to basically enliven his own sort of as he says, his fervor, his ravenous appetite.
Yeah.
Right, because he's kind of
Ravenous
fed up.
appetite,
Yeah, he's fed up with the air of where he's at. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the mind, it doesn't never seem to stop ever, right? It's always processing. So if you're focusing on something negative and in looping stagnation, it's gonna keep doing that, right? And because it's hard to stop it, especially in a depressed state. However, if you're out trying to have an adventure, and an adventure could even just be taking a day trip and running errands, going to the store or downtown, take care of some business or whatever, or visit a friend, get out the house or whatever. That's an adventure. Your mind's going to keep processing, but at least it's going to be some mysterious stuff, right? Some new things. So it's not stagnated.
Yeah, and this is the what the blonde beast represents. It represents the subdued, ravenous pride that devours all things of the European.
Mm.
Right, that comes out from time to time when he faces like the Oriental, like the mysterious, the desert within him.
Mhm.
Right, it finally comes out, right? Because it's like he's so inundated with the stench of Europe.
Yeah.
Right, it's like old values, it's old ways, right? That when they get a whiff of something new, they let the blonde beast out, right? Essentially. Right.
It's all crazy. White boy wasted, huh?
Yeah, a little
it's,
bit.
like,
Yeah.
it started going a little crazy, right? Yeah. Right, yeah. Because it's like it's something that needs to be exercised. And when it finally goes out, it goes a little wild, maybe, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because it is the real part of them, right?
Yes, yeah. But it hasn't been. It's been in the cage, just like my dog. If I leave him in the house, don't take him to the park on a regular basis. When they finally go out, they're gonna act like a beast in hardcore. Yeah, but you need to let it out. I like how he uses poetry, man, to do that. So when he was saying like, "You men, you little licorice, you heart sacks, be a man, courage, courage." You think he's talking to the last man?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm. The
The
person who
modern
seeks
man.
comfort only, right? Only seeks comfort,
Yeah,
security.
he's talking to the last man, the modern man, the European man.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure, he's talking to his own people.
So,
Right.
so like for example, like when Modern Man lost his name is interesting. Like Landry's name, Modern Man lost. That could be like a related to that in the sense that like maybe
Oh
Modern
yeah,
Man's lost is because they don't have the
right,
ambition. The
right. And they find themselves when they sort of get lost, is what Nietzsche's saying, right, in the desert. Right. Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. I know he's done that. Like he started off just streaming, for example, in his house, but then and then he goes out now and does adventures and works and stuff like that. So that's refreshing to get out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. These critiques hit home, Nietzsche. I like how he's trying to keep people honest. Do you think he was doing it on himself too, though? Like he was holding these standards for himself too.
Well,
He was.
I think some people talk about that, right?
Mhm.
They talk about somebody like the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian or Nietzsche,
Uh-huh.
and why they were such wimps, right? Yeah. Because they wrote about this sort of heroic impulse, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was in their line, and that line inside them, huh? Right.
Yeah, but it takes great courage. And I don't want to say that too much, right? Because it takes great courage to compose works, to share ideas with others that most people can't wrap their heads around. And anyways, even if they did, they're sure as hell not going to believe it or support you for saying it, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
takes great courage to do all of that and then to fight the fight and be exiled by your, a lot of cases, your friends and family and whatnot, but definitely the society at large.
mm-hmm. Um, would that be like which is self overcoming? Because I know Nietzsche talked about that, self overcoming.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he says that nature, loves to overcome itself, so it kills everything in the fall, so it could grow again.
interesting.
So it loves sacrifice in order to bring new things, right?
Yeah. Did you feel like the man you just mentioned a little while ago, growing up sometimes, where people just didn't get you because you had these interesting ideas, like provocative ideas
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff?
I felt that way my whole life. Yeah. I felt that way my
Yeah.
whole life. I felt like an alien. I felt unrelated to most people. Their concerns. I didn't fit in high school. I didn't fit in middle school. I didn't fit in Pakistan. I didn't fit in America. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. But these struggles, they kind of of course they make us who we are, right? Yeah. Whether we know it or not. But was there a point when you actually did recognize the fact that yes, this is happening for a reason? It's just not like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've always felt that it's all happening for like I mean, as I've said, that not everything happens for a reason, but nothing is random. That's a credo of
Right.
mine, right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as random events, right? But to say that there's a reason for it is to sometimes give too much credit to things that are going on, right?
Right. That's true. That is true. Well, when you brought up Nietzsche in the Earth or whatnot, like, so he was he like a somewhat of ecologist or like what's
I
his
have a
concept?
bunch of stuff on that. A little later after we read the Zarathustra stuff,
Okay.
I think he definitely thought that one modern aspect of life that was deplorable was the machine, right? And he wrote about sort of modern progress, as you just heard, right? But he sort of expanded on that, right? He didn't like modern concepts, right, such as Kant or Marxism or Darwin's evolution, right, or some of these other concepts, right?
Mhm.
He sort of railed against them for their ability to create this sort of average mass man, right, which he thought was sort of the last man, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I have stuff on that as well. Right,
Okay.
down the line, I want to read to you guys this other passage from Zarathustra, if I can,
Yeah,
right,
for
called
sure.
"The New Idol," right, and this will open up a lot of another aspect of his philosophy, right, that I think that people will, right, kind of understand, and I apologize for all the like sort of when I'm like staring at this bright white screen, and it's kind of hard to read this fucking shit, right, but yeah,
Oh,
so
you
try to
mean my
keep my
background?
um. No.
Your computer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you see. Oh, yeah, I see. Like you're reading
It's
it like
too
what
fucking
I'm reading
bright.
right here, huh?
Yeah.
It
It's
is
too
pretty
fucking
bright.
bright. Yeah. Yeah. The one I'm opened up now is called The New Idol, right?
Okay.
From Thus Spoke Zarathustra. So yeah. So check this out, guys. This is pretty interesting, right? Nietzsche talking about how the state is the new idol.
Mhm. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Of modern man, right? Right. So he says, somewhere there are still peoples and herds. Notice he laments the fact that there aren't peoples and herds, right? right. Right. So he says, peoples and herds have disappeared, right? He says, not with us, my brethren. Here there are states. So notice that, right? Peoples and herds have disappeared and states have replaced them pretty much. Right. So he's saying that more
Mhm.
personal, more rooted element, right, of the people, the ethnicity, the land, right, sort of drifted for this, this cadaver, right, which is basically like speaks for man. It's like a pale,
Mhm.
shell,
A
essentially,
corpse.
right,
A
right,
corpse.
yeah, corpse, right, corporation, right,
Yeah.
corporation, right, right. So it says a state, right. So he says, what is that? Right. He says, well, open now your ears unto me, for now will I say unto you my word concerning the death of peoples. How about that? He says the state is nothing
Mm.
more than the death of peoples.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So here I go to read it. He says, a state is called the coldest of all cold monsters. Coldly lieth it also, and this lie creepeth from its mouth. Quote, I, the state, am the people, unquote. It is a lie. Creators were they who created peoples and hung a faith and a love over them. Thus they serve life. Destroyers are they who lay snares for many and call it the state. They hang a sword and 100 cravings over them. Where there is still a people, there the state is not understood, but hated as the evil eye and as sin against laws and customs. This sign I give unto you, every people speaketh its language of good and evil. This its neighbor understandeth not, its language hath devised for itself in laws and customs, but the state lieth in all languages of good and evil. And whatever it saith, it lieth, and whatever it hath stolen. False is everything in it. With stolen teeth it biteth, the biting one. False are even its bowels. Confusion of language of good and evil, this sign I give unto you as the sign of the state. Verily, the will to death indicated this sign. Verily, it beckoneth unto the preachers of death. Many too are born, for the superfluous ones was the state devised. See just how it enticeth them to it. The many too many, how it swalloweth and cheweth and re-cheweth them. On earth, there is nothing greater than I, it says. It is I who am the regulating finger of God. Thus roareth the monster, and not only the long-eared and short-sighted fall upon their knees. Ah, even in your ears, ye great souls, it whispereth gloomy lies. Ah, it findeth out the rich hearts which willingly lavish themselves. Yea, it findeth you too, ye conquerors of the old God. Wary ye become of the conflict, and now your wariness serveth the new idol. Heroes and honorable ones, it would fain set up around it the new idol. Gladly it basketh in the sunshine of good conscience. The cold monster, everything will it give you if ye worship it, the new idol. Thus it purchaseth the luster of your virtue and glance of your proud eyes. It seeketh to allure by means of you the many too many. Yea, a hellish artifice hath here been devised, a death horse, jingling with the trappings of divine honors. Yea, a dying for many hath here been devised, which glorifieth itself as life. Verily, a hearty service unto all preachers of death, the state I call it. Where all are poison drinkers, right? Referring to Socrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
The good
Hemlock.
and the bad. Yeah, exactly. Right. The good and the
What's
bad.
up, modern man?
Yeah, blessings, modern man. Lost again, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the good and the bad, the state, where all lose themselves, the good and the bad, the state, where the slow self-harm, I won't say the word, right? Of all is called
Thank
life.
you. Delete.
Yeah, slow
There you
deletion
go.
of all is called life, right? Just see the superfluous ones. They steal the works of the inventors and the treasures of the wise. Culture
Mhm.
they call their theft. Woo!
I
So
see that
stealing-
ChatGPT, open source. Here, you can develop your software with our app. We'll just take everything you make. Type shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's stealing culture. See, the people is made of culture, and the state is sort of this mechanical edifice that sits on top of the whole thing, and is sapping their culture, their art, right, their creativity,
Mm-hmm.
right, for its own design, right. So he says, just see these superfluous ones. Sick are they always. They vomit their bile and call it a newspaper. They devour one another and cannot even digest themselves. Just see these superfluous ones. Wealth they acquire and become poorer thereby. Power they seek for, and above all, the lever of power. Much money, these impotent ones. See them clamber, these nimble apes. They clamber over one another and thus scuffle into the mud and the abyss. Towards the throne they strive. It is their madness, as if happiness sat on the throne. Oft times sitteth filth on the throne, and oft times also the throne of filth. Madmen, they all seem to me, and clambering apes, and too eager, badly smelleth their idol to me, the cold monster. Badly they all smell to me, these idolaters. My brethren, will ye suffocate in the fumes of their maws and appetites? Better break the windows and jump into the open air. Do go out of the way of the bad odor. Withdraw from the idolatry of the superfluous. Do go out of the way of the bad odor. Withdraw from the stream of these human sacrifices. Open still remaineth the earth for great souls. Empty are still many sites for the lone ones and twain ones, around which floateth the odor of tranquil seas. Open still remaineth a free life for great souls. Verily, he who possesseth little, is so much the less possessed. Blessed be moderate poverty, he says. There, where the state ceaseth, there only commoneth man who is not superfluous. There commenceth, right? Commenceth the song, right? There commenceth the man who is not superfluous. There commenceth the song of the necessary ones, and the single and irreplaceable melody. There, where the state ceaseth, pray, look thither, my brethren. Do ye not see it, the rainbow and the bridges of the Superman? Thus spoke Zarathustra. So there's the first passage I read from Zarathustra. So insanity.
Oh, wow,
bro.
that's his intro. Damn.
Insanity, bro.
Coming hard, bro.
Insanity, man.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
It's like, if that doesn't give you, like, you know, like, he just shit on the state. He's saying it's literally destroying culture, right? The state is a culture vulture. It's a cadaver of man. It's a dead thing that speaks for man and steals their culture, right? And he's saying that the corruption that ruined the state is the thirst for wealth.
Yeah.
You know.
And just from and then he's coming from now. What's up, Lizard Tree? What's up, Nero? I'm gonna drop the link for the home. I think Modern Man said he's gonna get it on his computer right now. I'll be right back. But dude, so can we give us a context of where Nietzsche? Because the society, I want to know about the society. Now I'll just ask you first: is the society that Nietzsche? Where was it? Where was the society he was? Where did he grow up? And like, is that society similar to our society still? So first of all, where did he grow up? So what was he? So why did he have such contempt for society?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, his own personal standings in society, right? Like there was
he grew up in Europe, right? Where in Europe? Sorry, but like where in Europe?
In Germany, yeah.
Germany, okay. In the 1800s, late 1800s?
Yeah, and he didn't like the German people. He didn't like his German sort of nationality, right? He wanted to be Polish. He said his mother was Polish, and he pointed to his Slavic roots, right? He wanted to, upplay his Polish ancestry and downplay his German ancestry.
Okay, let's start there real quick. Okay, well, that's interesting because what are Polish people more salt of the earth or?
Yeah, they're Slavic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like if you compare like Polish, right, to other Europeans, right? They're more sort of culturally ingrained, right? They're more sort of they sort of stick together.
Yes.
Right?
The commune, huh?
Yeah, more, right? So they're very like like loyal and stuff. They've been invaded, right? Like for example, they got invaded by Germany, right? I'm up in World War II, right?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So the Polish people have a rich cultural heritage. Unlike the Germans, they are Slavic people, right? So the Slavic people have a interesting history within European society, right? Not all Europeans are Slavs.
Yeah.
Right. There's a distinct culture within Europe, right?
Yeah, I think they were persecuted by the mustache man, Austrian painter, big time. The Slavs, the gypsies and whatnot too. Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, some might say that. There's conflicting stories about that sort of thing, but yeah, definitely.
What's up, Neurojack? How's it going, man? He's an Uber man.
Okay. Yeah, I got another passage from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, but I think I'll hold off on that for a little while until we get some more discussions or something, because it's kind of longish. But yeah.
But no, this is usually a lot to chew on about society and Nietzsche. So that makes sense. So the German, when I think of German, we think of stuff. I think of stuffy, very analytical, which is good in the sense they make the great engineers, right? Be able to critique very good and whatnot, but they seem kind of cold. If I was to compare them to the Poles, right? And whatnot. So in society, at that point where he was writing, it got to a point that it was like it was stifling him, suffocating him, right? He couldn't, so much so he couldn't fit in, right? So, but it's interesting, like on how that environment, how he would write about the will to power, right? And in the will to power, one would say, I mean, like he doesn't seem to be talking about becoming a dictator or whatnot. What's the difference between that? Because on a quick look at it, like will to power, all power, like a dictator. What would he say about that?
Yeah, like there's thinkers throughout history, right, that don't think that there's systems, right, that people developed of knowledge, right, and the state that brought about human progress, right? So instead, right, like thinkers like Machiavelli or Thomas Carlyle or Friedrich Nietzsche, right, they actually said that, you know, history is actually a compilation of actions of great men. And those men kind of appear randomly and they kind of appear rarely throughout history.
Yeah.
Right. So so historical progress is kind of disjointed as a result of these men, you know, who have extremely exceptional character just appearing like once in a while. Right. So he kind of thought like the historical engine is actually the actions of great men instead of like, you know, systems and knowledge that kind of slowly increases over time and people kind of get better at science and technology and all this stuff. So Nietzsche kind of rejected progress, as I read earlier. Right. He thought that there's many senses in which ancient people were further than us, right? Like for example, they could make things that we can't make, right? And so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
In their language and poetic expression and architectural feats and whatnot.
Right. Shadow Buddha brings up a good point right here. He says, Gabe, isn't it ironic that the Austrian painter didn't want to be Austrian? He wanted to be German, while Nietzsche admired Polish culture, didn't really care for the German culture. That's pretty ironic right there. Yeah. Welcome back, Modern Men Lost, and welcome, Neuro Jack.
What's up, man?
On you guys' mind?
I love it. I love nature. Man. I love nature destroying things.
Nature.
You see it. You ever look at cheese? You ever look at trees? I never looked at trees until like last week. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Look at the trees like breakfast tacos. Right?
He does that.
Oh, he's fat.
Yeah, he says, look at the trees.
I prefer to look at the flowers, like Carol from Walking Dead said.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
References. You got breakfast taco references. You got Walking Dead. You got Landry walking with the tea. When I think of the trees, I think of Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So what's that? So about nature, because you said you want to talk about how nature is being destroyed and whatnot.
Well, you know me, man. I'm not like an intellectual by any means, but I think it's interesting to see when they build something. Anyone like they build a city, builds whatever, a building or a highway, any infrastructure. They often 9 times out of 10 eventually just stop maintaining it, and then it just starts to deteriorate. So then it gets sunken back into nature, and that's just most of where I live. And it seems like they're putting less effort into maintaining it. Maybe that's just in my imagination, but
yeah.
Well, I saw this counterintuitive example where they have this island off the coast of California that they test weapon systems on, and because they test weapon systems on it, they've saved all these endangered species allegedly. So, what do you guys think about
that? I kind of believe it.
Yeah. I mean, they saved. You said they were testing weapon system.
Yeah, because all these people came and like brought goats like 200 years ago or something, and then they got rid of all the goats, and then it kind of sat idle, but people were like poaching a bunch of stuff. But now because it's a military island and they just do like weapons testings on it, all these endangered species that are like very unique to this place have started to regenerate because no people have really been allowed other than a few things, and they kind of like actively keep out all the birds and
They
rats
can
and stuff like
flourish.
that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't see a problem with. Oh, there's always a problem. There's always someone's always got to pay. But I mean, that sounds kind of cool. Like these things are coming back or whatnot. But I don't know. Is them being around going to cause any detrimental effects? I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's just interesting that like it's just a kind of a weird juxtaposition where it's like they're trying to be environmental, and they say that like warfare, preparing for warfare is like environmentally friendly essentially. So I think it's kind of an interesting argument.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk on the Zarathustra thing because Machine and I have been going back and forth on, and I think Buddha as well. And I just want to throw my little theory back in here because I think it's important. Because it seems that there's a connection between Zoroastrianism and Judaism, and also, obviously, Nietzsche was kind of upset about. He was kind of upset about some some problems of Catholicism versus, uh, Protestantism, and by the time Nietzsche is around, they've kind of gone down this certain path with German idealism or whatever it is, romanticism. I don't know. But so my question is like, why do you think he chose Zarathustra? And was he a Zoroastrian, or was he a different
Yeah,
sect of
I
something?
can tell you
And
why.
what do you think the like
Yeah,
correlation
I'll
he was
find it
trying to
the
make
quote.
with that
Let me
in
find the
relation
quote.
to like
I saved it. But he actually tells you
pre-Christianity?
why.
Hold on, bro.
Because
I know you want to
again,
get it out,
Christianity sees
Avian.
itself
Let it
as
go.
like pre-Judaism, and Judaism is kind of like a heresy and stuff like this. And I think Islam has a similar thing. So like, I'm trying to see like what's the juxtaposition about what he's trying to use Zoroaster or Zarathustra or however you say his name, to make that point, I guess.
I'll give my opinion on that. Off top, I think maybe he picked Zarathustra because it's interesting that, like, supposedly, I think that those main religions that we all know, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, they kind of one could say they may have came from Zarathustraism, right?
No,
In a roundabout way, and and I think it's interesting how Nietzsche uses Zarathustraism as a who seems like to be a person like, man, that's Superman. They call it Uberman. I'll just say Superman. So it's interesting how like maybe this is like a way of him saying that like this is the way it should be. Why if it does come from Zarathustraism, all these religions that we all know, like why aren't we doing better in a sense? Or why isn't even the individual doing better? I think it's kind of ironic. That's why he uses that.
well,
Go ahead, Evian. I know you want to
you
talk.
know,
Go ahead.
here's H.E. Homo. He says this, and why am I destiny? It's the third point he said. So, for what constitutes the tremendous historical uniqueness of the Persian is just the opposite of this. Zarathustra was the first to consider the fight of good and evil, the very wheel in the machinery of faith, the transposition of morality into the metaphysical realm, as a force, cause, and end in itself, is his work. Zarathustra created this most calamitous error, morality. Consequently, he must also be the first to recognize it. His doctrine and his alone posits truthfulness as the highest virtue. This means the opposite of the cowardice of the idealist who flees from reality. Am I understood? The self-overcoming of morality out of truthfulness, the self-overcoming of the moralist into its opposite, into me. This is what the name
Hold
of
on. This
means to my love.
This is very dense. Like, what did you say about like getting away from something? Maybe this is like three sentences before.
1 second, real quick. If I could ask, Buddha, what part of Ecce Homo is this?
Is like it says the little star tree here. I'll just give it in the private chat. You can Google it. It's from Ecce Homo. Yeah.
But you know how it's divided into sections. Like, why am I so clever? Why am I so? Which one?
Why am I destiny? Why I am destiny? Yeah.
Oh, why I am destiny. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I was just reading. I mean, basically he says that Zarathustra, because he views the morality as a part of the machinery of things, the intrinsic nature of things, the machinery. It's the first slave morality. There you go. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's a very concise answer. Thank you for that, Buddha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that actually
What is it?
perfectly answers the question. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
can you make it? Can you say it again? You said, can you break that down in a layman term? What you just said?
Yeah. He sees. Okay, you see, we see the world as like a, like Star Wars, right? You see, and you see the conflict of good and evil as inherent in reality. It's like a part of reality, right? A lot of people see things like, oh, they say this is
Mhm.
evil, this is bad, and then they self-victimize themselves, or they be like, oh, the forces of evil are harming me, But the Nietzsche would say that slave morality. He would say that kind of attitude is
Okay.
kind of slave morality, because he doesn't really see there as being like, like a good and evil combating each other in within the world or something. What I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's what the quote pretty much gets at. So you see, my friend, he knows Nietzsche very well. I used to talk to him a lot. He read all of Nietzsche actually. So I learned a lot from secondhand from him.
Okay. So if he doesn't think it's slave, that you don't that slave mentality, what does he think it is? If it's not about good and evil,
Slave
what does he think?
mentality. But the thing is,
What
when
does Nietzsche think it is? If
yeah,
it's not,
slave morality is
if
when people like envy the powerful and they rely on like some moral code that they create as a way to like shame those in power or guilt those in power and to validate themselves for their weaknesses and stuff like that.
yeah. So
That
what
makes
would be
sense.
a better alternative that Nietzsche would suggest to doing that?
He suggests what's called transvaluation of ideals, where you create your own values and you fight for your own values. You don't care about some cosmic justice. You just construct your own values and that's what you
Mhm.
live by. And so you don't
Mm.
care about. So basically, in slang terms, it's about being based about what you strongly feel about, and not falling for some I don't know, some grand narrative about
Yeah.
cosmic justice.
Do you think if that's actually enacted, that would be that life could get somewhat out of hand if every single person is doing that? It doesn't have
I love
a quote
Nietzsche.
unquote. What was
Well,
that?
Yeah, I like Nietzsche. I like some of what he says, but I wouldn't say I'm Nietzsche ultimately.
yeah,
Though.
I think he would kind of say it can't be enacted as a general rule. That is kind of like more like the Tao. It's like a process that purges people throughout history. You know, where like exceptional people get drawn out of the mass mind, so to speak.
Yeah.
He doesn't like
That was pretty concise. I like that.
he doesn't like it when, to use slang, so if someone were to get cucked and they make excuses and they like draw a big cosmic narrative drama, or they say that oh, you're evil or whatever. He would say that that's a slave morality. That's not he would say that. So like, you see what I'm trying to say? He's against like, well, he does think. I remember my friend saying that there is some ingenuity in slave morality because he does view the small hats, their tradition, as also originating from slave morality, and that it helped them get stronger. So
Hmm.
Right.
they talk about that stuff too.
But to answer Neuro, it seems like Nietzsche is pointing to that same thing, right? Because he's saying that the question of slave morality was first, arrived on the scene with Zoroastrianism, and then it influenced these other ways, right? And he sort of thinks that Christianity is like Mithraism, right? He says that in the Antichrist as well. So he kind of thinks there's some influence of these older religions on sort of the newer ones in history, right? So
Yeah. For those who don't know what Mithraism is, what is the main concept of that?
it's like a sort of offshoot of Zoroastrianism where God had like a son, right? Like but it's like different. It's like he was like in an egg, right? It's like called Mithra, right? So it's like this androgynous figure that exists that's a sort of primordial man, right? So it's similar to Christianity in that there was a primordial man that God created the world through, right? So he's
Oh,
like the sort of
Mithra.
originator.
Mithra is
Okay.
in the Roman variety is different from the Iranian Mithra, but
Yeah.
the Roman rarity had Neoplatonic influences, and I think even from the Sol Invictus, also influences from Sol Invictus. But the Mithraism in Iran, and also the Roman kind, yeah, let me see what I was gonna say. Yeah, I think Mithraism was more polytheistic, but they came from the same Proto-Indo-Iranian root.
Yeah.
Both of them, they're more like offshoots.
Polytheistic, you meaning like many gods?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mithraism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see here. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. Yeah. Yeah, but about Mithras and stuff, it's very interesting though. Yeah, I have a lot I could say about this, but I don't know where to start. I know a lot about
Oh well,
Zoroastrianism.
well. As long as you, I mean, I love your bringing. As long as you can make it concise for the audience. The more shares, the better. But just keep that in mind, please. Especially with this my audience. I know machine streaming too, but my guys are a little bit more, new to some of these ideas. So it'd be great if you just keep in mind to keep it concise for the audience, so we can, walk with you and stuff. Shout out to Marilyn in the building. Wella, good to have you. Wella in the building. CM crew in the building.
Yeah, but Mithra in
Put the link,
Zoroastrianism became a
Wella.
lesser deity called Yazata. So Mithra is in Zoroastrianism too. He's more like a mediator and stuff. So he's like an arbitrator of justice. Stuff like
Okay. What would maybe, I don't know, I want to hit this again. What would Nietzsche think about dictators using his will to power and all that type of stuff? Yeah.
I think he would be fine with it, in my opinion. But I think that, as you just read, not every sort of dictator has the noblest of goals or intentions, right? Some of them seek to exploit this thing called the state instead of build upon the people, right? So they're not seeking to improve the people, right? To create honor or a sort of quest for higher values among their people, but they're willing to just exploit their people through this instrument of the state in order to get more wealth, right? So as you saw, I think he's pretty much opposed to that. He's pretty much opposed to the state. He likes the relationship between the people and their leaders, right? He thinks there's something honorable about that, right? So yeah.
This is Axis Radcliffe. How's it going?
Hey, hanging in there, brother.
Chilling, bro.
Good to be a part.
Yeah.
TML. Gabriel.
Any thoughts on Nietzsche and this amazing book that he wrote, Axis?
Which one?
Today's episode is about Thus Spoke Zarathustra. We've been talking about the concept of the last man and the Uberman, and also it's just Nietzsche's take on society, his disdain for society. It seemed like in the German society back then.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. No, but I've read a lot of Nietzsche and taken a lot of his concepts and ideals, but Nietzsche comes across, even though he's highly philosophically and he holds a social engineering aspect that is kind of anti, with hints of I guess hope in there in a developmental way, but from his take from what we began to what we became, especially during World War II and the development and the Uberman, as you say, the enhanced man. I think that's still a part of where we're headed right now, through technology instead of through genetic manipulation and psychological alteration.
It's like develop. Yeah, I see that. We spoke on before on this show about the transhumanism and whatnot. Machine. Isn't there a concept of the three metamorphoses that Nietzsche talked about? like how he went from going from like something about camel to lion to child. You heard of that?
Yeah,
And then,
that's in
yeah,
the beginning parts of the work. Yeah.
yeah. So why is the child the final stage on that? You think camel,
Maybe
lion, child?
maybe it's a return, a metaphoric return to innocence and
Mhm.
stepping away from this ultra development of humans into something more than what they truly were originally naturally developed to be.
Right.
Interesting. Good take. Yeah. And we see that like today. I played the beginning of the show. We played "Thus Spoke Zarathustra." You know, the song from 2001: Space Odyssey. And at the
Yes.
very end of that, remember the book and the movie. That's the Star Child is what the human seemed to evolve into. The Star Child looking over at Earth and whatnot. And I think of Aleister Crowley in his tarot deck about how the universe card. He talks about the is it Horus or Horus's son as like the ideal version of where he sees things going. But the point is that I like what you said about the innocence, because maybe this is why children are such attacked in this weird society. Because of that.
I heard a Satanist once say that a child's soul has no value. And because it was protected by its innocence, you wanted a virgin that had already reached puberty, such as a female, and especially with certain attributes, because the child's soul was not a sufficient sacrifice to certain gods and deities, which naturally out of Babylon would have been completely blasphemous. But modern Satanism takes a toll, or I guess it would be from Christianity, I suppose, that the soul of the child is innocent, therefore it holds no value, because it's immediately snatched up for its innocence into the greater good.
Yeah.
So I have some questions for TML about, not just for TML, but Nietzsche was influenced by Schopenhauer, but he broke off from Schopenhauer because I think he rejected later on the thing in itself, even though he believed in a will to power. I think he was against treating that like an essential substance or something later on. I'm not sure. But there were other thinkers who were influenced by Schopenhauer who could be considered metaphysicists of the will, and they were close contemporaries of Nietzsche, and not many people know about them. And I had a friend that was deep into them. He was German. Some of them are Philip Mainlander. He argued the will is oriented to death. He argued for will to death. Then there was Edward von Hartmann. He argued that the will is paired with the unconscious intellect. So he believed that will is going towards unconsciousness. And then there was Julius Bonson. He intensified Schopenhauer into a plurality of conflicting wills. So Julius Bonson believed that the wills were conflicting with each other, and he creates an irreconcilable contradiction. He calls it real dialectics. And Nietzsche, he must have known of these people, but he broke off from Schopenhauer because it was more life affirming, because he wanted to make the will to power it's not really like a metaphysical substrate. It's more like something that affirms all life. Amor fati. Have you heard of amor fati?
Yeah.
Nietzsche loves
Yeah.
amor fati.
That's actually related to this idea of eternal recurrence. Amor fati. Because of eternal recurrence, you accept the fate, right?
Yeah. Would you say what's his name? Victor, the guy that wrote A Will to Meaning, the ex-concentration camp survivor. Remember he wrote that book about, or The Will of Purpose, or Will to Meaning, or something like that?
Yeah. Victor Frankl, right?
Victor Frankl, yeah. He might have been influenced by them.
Yeah, and this is a segue into this concept from the Kabbalah, right? Because the Kabbalah often argues that it's will and not reason that gets the whole thing started, right? So I think the Kabbalah may have hijacked Nietzsche on this, and I think Rudolf Steiner and other people sort of saw this, right? They were sort of building on Nietzsche's philosophy, right? And it's more occult prescriptions, right? Or whatever. But yeah, the will concept, right? It can be hijacked, right? For sure, the Schopenhauer idea, right? And thank you for bringing that up. That he's deeply influenced by these guys like Schopenhauer and Plato, and the Bible and stuff, right? That kind of say like you got to surrender up your will and you got to give up your desires and stuff. And he's kind of going against a lot of that, right? And saying, well, if all wills are mutually exclusive, then it's the fight of each will to sort of impose itself on all other wills that is the major significance of the entire ordeal, right? So he fell into Heraclitus, right, where he said that, it's a war of all against all, right? And that's what actually propels things.
Yeah, but Schopenhauer does have a Parmenidean aspect to him, because he says the will is the thing in itself. The thing is like when the will is enunciated, then it's like aspatial, atemporal, or something. It's like without space.
But what do you guys think about the idea that, because again, I don't know if Nietzsche had any occult projects in all this. I assume that it's possible, but
most likely,
what do you guys
most likely he was deeply involved with the occult. I would say just because of Wagner and like all of his friends and just
right. You mean the composer Wagner?
Yeah, like he wanted to take things back to like paganism and stuff, and he revolted. Like Nietzsche revolted against the fact that he partly gave a nod to Christianity, right? That he didn't go full pagan. So that was his whole problem with Wagner, right?
Well, I think so. It's almost like he's trying to salvage aspects of paganism that may have been whitewashed out of history by pseudo Christianity or Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Robot it a little bit. Well, it seemed like Nietzsche was so controversial because he was first to diagnose a problem about this whole thing about like we spoke on it earlier about how like the framework of
sorry about that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I was saying though, like he was definitely diagnosing a shift that was happening about like, I don't know if he actually said God is dead, but that's kind of a way of saying that like these traditional religious beliefs all of us are adhering to, it's making it so we're not really taking responsibility for our lives and creating our, the narrative of our life. Well, I think what he did was he put that on people's consciousness,
Yeah, he did like to bring light to that which was kind of feared or was shadow cast off as main acceptable, literature. And he did bring a lot of that to light, and he was kind of down on people that weren't willing to approach the monster of the situation and accept it for what it is until it became more appeasing to the whole. He did, he did a little bit of writing on that.
I know a robot. I just want to make sure my point was clear really briefly. So what?
Can you guys quickly say something before you? When he says death of God, the God is dead, Nietzsche meant that God has lost his binding force over morality. So, he's talking about modernity and how the references to God have kind of lost their binding force due to modernity and stuff.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, because people don't agree on it. That's why. Yeah, I think so. There's no common shared values.
Before I forget my point, I just want to make sure I reiterate this. So what I was trying to get at was that, because I know I roboted out, I just want to make sure it's clear what I meant. It seems that Nietzsche was kind of giving a pass to Christianity in some sense, and kind of accusing Christianity or pseudo-Christianity of whitewashing some of the positive aspects of either Zoroastrianism, Mithraism, or Christianity generally. And so what I'm trying to get at is that, would you guys believe that he was pro Judaism or pro Kabbalah or pro Zoroastrianism in particular, or pro Mithraism, as a way to like reset the clock on Christianity, or how would you guys view that?
Well, it's like Buddha said that, like he thought that Zarathustra created this problem of these morals, right? So in a sense, right, like he's saying that the whole problem comes from Zarathustra. If somebody's going to solve it, it's going to be looking at Zarathustra, the guy who created the problem, right? So in his sense, right, he does not like Judaism, right? He thinks that Judaism, that the Jews, if anything, they may have subverted Christianity too, right? And they definitely used it, and the subversive nature of the Jews is shown within the Christian movement, right? So he basically thinks that the Jews invented Christianity to kind of like destroy Rome, right?
Yeah, and before you go on, I just want to make sure, because Avian sent me a very interesting Wikipedia about this guy named Carter, and this is kind of what is kind of helping me formulate this question. So I just want to mention that because he may have something specific on that. Like this guy Carter or whatever, he kind of like institutionalized Zoroastrianism as a state religion, and I wanted to know A, his opinion on it, and B, how that relates to what we're talking about here, because I just don't want to lose sight of that, because you sent me that article. It's very interesting. It ties to a ridiculous amount of things that people are not, aware of, I'm sure. So,
Well, first I want to say that it's not related at all to Nietzsche, but I can still answer it if Gabriel's okay with it.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, you're okay with it?
Yeah, go ahead, man. It is, like I said, concise, to the point, please.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it's about Zoroastrianism and its relationship to Judaism. That's kind of my point, but go ahead.
Yeah. Carter was during the Sassanid Empire. The Sassanids called themselves Iran Shah or whatever. And so they codified and they made Zoroastrianism the state religion. So the religion of the empire, And so, the Sassanids were a theocratic monarchism. And so Carter was a high priest. He's kind of like almost analogous to Khomeini in some sense. But instead of taking power, he was in the shadows. He was in the background. And he actually, helped persuade Bahram the first, or it was the second, to massacre the Manichaeans. The Manichaeans were a Gnostic sect, with Prophet Mani, and they were Christian, kind of. I mean, well, it depends on your definition of Christian. They were, Mani claimed to be like a paraclete of Christ or whatever. But anyway, the point is that the Sassanids, they wanted Zoroastrianism as the religion of the empire. So, Carter was very oppressive, is the right word? Yeah, I guess oppressive. Like, so they got rid of anything that threatened it as the status quo, as the main religion. And they had stuff like apostasy laws and stuff like that. The Sassanid Empire with Zoroastrianism, stuff like that. It was a very, it's not good to overly romanticize the Zoroastrians. You need to read books and stuff. So yeah, that's
But Avian, but in terms of though, like the Persian culture, would you say that it's like a big foundation of it influencing?
Of course, it's a big foundation. I would say, it's a big foundation. But I would say that it still needs some reconstruction. We did preserve the Gathas, which they claim goes back to Zoroaster. The rest of the Zend Avesta, which is the holy book of the Zoroastrian, is in younger Avestan, which is more of a script that is more young. Well, the old Avestan of the Gathas, some scholars claim it goes back to Zarathustra. You can read the Gathas. The Gathas are very different from the rest of the Zend Avesta. Basically, it comes down to there being a dualistic antagonism between truth and lie, and good and evil.
I heard somebody quote about like how the Greeks they thought that the Persians, that they said they valued their truth as one of the top priorities for them, which is cool.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with Nietzsche, because it seems that Nietzsche was saying, well, truth overrides morality, but at the same time, like who determines what's truth, and that's kind of what I'm saying. He seems to have a
question.
metaphysical claim of like what determines truth, and it seems that he's saying that like, well, will to power, meaning if you can do it, you can make it happen. But again, I think that he's also
Forced
making a
doctrine
claim.
sounds like.
Right. Well, but I think it's a more sophisticated thing than like might makes right. I think he's saying a little bit more than that. So that's what I'm trying to get, because I know that Zoroastrianism puts that forward, and Judaism claims this as well. But and I think it goes to like, for example, I was watching this rabbi, and he was talking about how, well, Judaism basically says that, you know, we give things up to God, and it's very similar with Zoroastrianism. But at the same time, it's like we don't chastise our own people because they're on our team, so we don't need to go and like throw our team under the bus, because our greater project of bringing light and truth to the world is more important than an individual's mistakes or morality. So it does seem very related to modern, I
There's some
guess,
differences. I
Orthodox
want to
Judaism.
remark on one difference. See, in Zoroastrianism, based on what I've read, people are co-workers of God, because the Spenta Manual, which means sacred spirit, which manual has a double meaning, as spirit and mentality. So when you are doing good actions, or you have good intentions, or you have righteous intention, you are helping God and banishing the evil of Ingra Manu, the evil intent, or Ahraman. So there are some disagreements on the origin of it, but ultimately it comes down to like end time stuff. They call it Pharaoh security, which is the end times where the light banishes the darkness. So it's very dualistic. So that's one very big market difference between Judaism and Zoroastrianism. Judaism is way more monotheistic. Well, Zoroastrianism is more ditheistic or something. It's more like two different spirits that are fighting or something, and people they're co-workers. You see what I mean? But you gotta research more and stuff.
Yeah. What's up to Chris Ross? I see you popped up. Were you there? What are we doing? Okay. Yeah. Do you guys think that bring it back to Nietzsche too? Like, do you think that his mental? What's up? What's up, Chris Ross? How's it going, man?
What's up, y'all?
You guys think that? Yeah. Any thoughts? So we've been speaking. I don't know when you popped in. Have you been listening? But I'll ask you this: Do you think truth is more of a priority than having good morals, or vice versa? Getting to the truth is more, or is having morality, a code, one could say, is more important than the quote unquote truth.
The thing is,
yes. Let me ask Chris real quick, because he just popped in. If he's able to speak, I don't know. He's got a lot of things going on right there.
Thanks, brother. Well, I was watching this movie off YouTube. It's from 2007. Zeitz or something like that.
Zeitgeist.
And yeah,
that's a good one.
And it just pretty much breaks down, like, there's so many different religions. There's been someone that was born on the 25th or walks on water and stuff. And so if we really look at it, a lot of books and stuff have been burnt. So once we get our asses in the Vatican and start dissecting what they're hiding from us, I think we'll, have a little more answers with these crooked ass serpents. That's just
a lot of things are hidden. A lot of things are hidden to the masses, for sure. Yeah. That's a good point. Avian and everyone else, and Chris and everyone else. What is truth, though? I mean, God, we can talk about that for forever, but like people say, the truth is more important. What's an easier way to define that?
I kind of think truth is in the same spectrum as science.
Okay.
Factual science is tested that can be repeated with the same result. And I think that truth is the same as, if you are founded in a fundamental truth that is actualized, then no matter how many times you say it, there's not going to be a dispute against it because it's factually based.
Yeah. Like the truth is, the sun's gonna come up every day, right? Like
Right.
I would say morality is a tool set to help you ascertain what is truth, and without it, you can't really ascertain it. So that's my opinion. Well,
So
meaning
you're
like
saying they
morality
go
comes
hand in
from
hand, then,
God.
huh?
Yeah, I would say morality comes from God. Ethics is how we apply it, and truth is what comes out of the dance that we do between what we do here on Earth and what God has in store for everything. It was kind of something
Well,
to that effect.
well, that's why we are gifted with the Jedi mind fucks, stuff like this, to be able to really show us the truth, because the truth is within deeper than we can imagine here on Earth. So God gives us, or the Creator gives us, these sacraments to be able to leave these realms as well as dabble in other realms and come back. So it's a really blessing. The truth, you really take mushrooms or a psychedelic or something like that, you find the truth, because there's no hiding. No hiding. When you're on a psychedelic, you cannot hide from nothing.
Yeah, I think that is another dimension of truth. Access talked about science, proven consistency with the outcome, but and then Chris is talking about psychedelic truth, about like it just hits you in the face, right? Too. Yeah. What about religious truth?
Yeah, I want to. Can I ask something? Because this ties into Nietzsche again. Did you talk about his perspectivism? Because Nietzsche argued that there are like
The
no
Piper.
like objective mind independent truth as something pure and accessible in itself. So he argued that what truths are like human interpretations, like it's shaped by perspective, language, and even needs. And he summarized it as perspectivism. So his issue with Zarathustra was when truth is moralized, and that leads to like, some the slave morality we talked about. But yeah, I just wanted to say that about Nietzsche because we talk about Nietzsche, but the perspectivism is a big part of Nietzsche. His whole idea of perspectivism. Well, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'll say this too. Well,
Go
I'll say this too. The truth is also too that when you buy me a coffee, I get very happy. So donations are welcomed. And that is the truth. That is a truth that I enjoy. So yeah, if you feel moved to, please leave a donation. All right, go ahead, Nora. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody, please. We need to donate to each other and try to like
absolutely
promote this and find Clipper. We need to get into the Clipper business. We need to find people who are going to clip us off, make us famous, so we can make way more money. And I'm dead serious about that. I'm not joking. So
I've been doing that. Hey, well, quick. I've been doing that, making the last couple of days. It's fun actually, and it's very easy. There's so much good things that you guys say up here on these panels that it's very easy to find like a 2-minute clip or more. And I just post.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that, by the way, because those clips are actually really
they're fun,
good for me, because it reminds me of like little things in the conversation I may have missed or didn't really catch at the time. So, we need to all need to do that more. So, but man, what was my point I was going to make?
I'm sorry,
no, you're good. But I was going to say with kind of what you guys are saying, like the morality situation. I mean. Well, I don't know if everybody got a chance to answer, so I wanted to go back to that before we go beyond that, if everybody doesn't mind.
Yeah, you go. Just go what you have to say, though. We'll get to that, but like.
Well, I forgot my point now, but that is another thing I wanted to say is like I wanted everybody to get a chance to answer that one because I think it's a pretty important one. Yeah.
Can you restate the question again?
Well, you asked the question. You asked the question that.
Oh
yeah.
What do you prioritize? Getting to the truth or morality?
Yeah, and what is truth? And what is truth as well? Yeah, you kind of said that too.
Yeah, Access did a good job of that, and then Rasta did his take on that, which was pretty cool. So yeah, what about you, Avian? What do you think truth is? And then with that said, about truth versus morality.
Well, I would say I'm a Zen Buddhist, Soto Zen, and Mahayana school. I would say truth is projectionless. It's use apophatic terms to describe it. Apophatic means by negation and stuff. So it's like projectionless, without duration. It's like a pure awareness, an awareness that abides nowhere. It's like a non-abiding awareness. That's the closest approximation to truth, I think. it's like when you're sitting and you're not trying to strive for anything, and there's a natural, like, luminous, spontaneous awareness or whatever.
Yeah, I like that. Now, in terms of morality, how's that lined up with your Zen Buddhist practices or a philosophy?
Well, I believe in karma and rebirth, and there's something called repository consciousness, and the repository consciousness contains the seeds from countless lifetimes, including this one. And the habit energy is what determines your disposition in the next life, your volitional dispositions in the next life. So, by meditating and by looking inward and by having good conduct, compassion, it can, like, purify your storehouse consciousness. Roughly speaking, it's like, approximation and stuff. So I don't think memory is entirely stored in the brain. I don't think explicit memory.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, more like a cloud type of stuff going on, maybe.
Yeah, something like a cloud or something.
Our body stores it, according to the somatic psychologists and stuff. Your body stores memory too. Machine Lies, how about you in terms of this? What is truth and truth v morality?
Yeah, I think Nietzsche was correct about the higher sense of morality, but I don't think that you could cast away morality, right? I think there's a slave morality, there's a master morality, right?
Okay.
So I think the master morality is an addition to the morality that, he called slave morality, which I think he understood quite well in terms of his explanations of Zarathustra and so on and so forth, right? So I think that what he really wanted was an exceptional type of person to emerge, and I think, as I said, he thought that this was sort of the engine of history, that universalism sort of brought out very base instincts in man, right? And that there was a good quality to the sort of vile and sort of rapacious character that's sort of on the prowl in a war, that there's an honor, and sort of lust for vengeance, and that these things can also be counted as sort of moral truths in a way, right? So I take him as not negating morality in any sense, but adding new dimensions to the moral purview, right?
Right.
So I reject his amoralism.
Yeah, and I would agree with that pretty much. And I think that, based on my understanding of Nietzsche, I think that he's definitely saying that, like, a lot of these things that we see as like evil traits of people, like you said, can ultimately do good. And what's interesting is that this rabbi that I was listening to said, was saying this kind of thing about, he's like, well, the good thing about Zoroastrianism and Judaism is, like, it kind of does say that, like, well, some of the evil that we do, we may not see that actually produces good. And again, I'm not saying this is like traditional Zoroastrianism or something, but I do think that there is, like, some truth to that. But again, it can be taken to, like, an Epstein level as well. So, like, obviously we don't want to go there, but
no, if I could interject, I've felt this philosophy for years, and I still hold true to it. Is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think for every good deed that is done, there is an equal and opposite negative deed that balances it out. And for every negative deed that is done, there is an equal and opposite good deed that is done. It's a kind of a constant balance.
I want your take then, access on this example, just for the sake of this, regardless of what people think about dinosaurs or not. What about the destruction of the majority of the dinosaurs, like millions of years ago? So that one could see for them that was a bad deed, right? A negative deed. What do you think a positive consequence of that was?
Well, it allowed
we're living on dinosaur blood, right? As they say.
Yeah, for you and society, it gave us a chance to evolve, develop, and reach the state that we are, which, I still question whether it's a good state or a bad state.
Yeah.
I'm
it's definitely a state, though, right? We can agree on it's a state, but we don't know if it's good or bad, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was a transition from, these colossus type animals and raptorous type animals. Even the Vegisaurus, who could step on your house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That still causes a lot of damage. You're right.
well,
Yeah.
the dinosaurs still live on as birds, and there's
Right. You're right.
this thing called pedimorphosis. I read papers on it. It's the retention of juvenile or larval traits into an organism's adult stage. And birds are cute, right? They're very cute, and they have
Yes.
more juvenile traits. In a way, they're smarter than dinosaurs. Birds are actually smarter and more intelligent than dinosaurs, depending on the species. Like ravens are smart. Japanese tits are smart, and there's some interesting videos on that. And there are also lots of songbirds can be very smart. They're called passerines. So,
Yeah.
it depends on it.
Yeah, birds are smart.
Chickens are
When
not.
they get that stupid not euphemism, what they call? Oh yeah, bird brain. Call someone a bird brain. It's stupid, but you're right. But some birds are very intelligent. Now, Machine, you just said we could be living on the blood of dinosaurs, right? And I thought that it reminds me. I got to tap in with this Morgan Freeman narration documentary that came out 2 months ago on Netflix. It's called Dinosaurs or something like that. Just played out the dinosaurs, and what it put in my mind two things. One thing, like the epochs of time, like how much has changed, not only in the universe but in the Earth itself. Like crazy stuff has happened. And then second thing was this constant battle throughout the millenniums of dinosaurs versus reptiles, right? Kind of like going against each other. And do you see that playing out now? Maybe. Because I know going conspiratorial, with the so-called elites, we talked about that last broadcast. Maybe they have a reptile mind, or even some people will go so far as saying that they're shifters. And if that's the case, we could be like the dinosaurs versus these reptilians, or I don't know. Someone help take the pass. I'm throwing it up for everybody.
Yeah, it could be like the reptiles are like this exceptional people that are trying to work within the system and trying to wield the system, to take control of it, whereas the dinosaurs are like these corporations, right?
Yeah. It's us, the dinosaur media too, doing the old ways of doing things. They're huge institutions, that are actually crushing, to use Access, they're actually crushing people with their misinformation. If you let it.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. It's it's good that we have the internet, but then in itself, that's almost like a second Matrix too, because these so-called good guys, the small man, the alternative media, they be yielding some weird narratives too that are confusing as well, huh? Yeah.
Have you heard of the Silurian hypothesis? Have you heard of
what is that?
Basically, the tools that they have are limited, in order to determine if there was an advanced civilization around the time of the dinosaurs. So, for all we can know, maybe they were like dinosaur humanoids or something.
I'm a huge believer. Yeah, I'm a huge believer that human beings existed at the time of the dinosaurs.
Well, there's South American petroglyphs that actually show the indigenous people of South America side by side with certain types of dinosaurs.
Wow, that's interesting. And we've seen in science fiction and other writings and art that depiction too, as well. In like
the first Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo had something about this actually pretty front and center in that movie. And there's other movies. There's a lot. There's obviously a ton of movies like that, but
we just saw. I mean, shout out to Ben. Like his birthday week, it was the dad-son day. We went to go see the new Mario Brothers, and just that in itself, that the leaders, the tyrannical leaders, are dinosaurs. Koopa and his son. They're the ones that are like in the turtles. Their minion are trying to subjugate everyone. So yeah, that's a story that's being played out. They definitely seem like they had the will to some type of power, but they're trying to be the boss, right?
Yeah, and then the Koopa Troopas are, they're like another race of beings, along with the Goombas. If you play, Paper Mario, you get kind of you know, and it's like they have their own societies, so to speak, right? That resemble our sort of societies. Like Koopa Troopas kind of live in the suburbs, whereas the Goombas live in a village, and so on and so forth.
That's true, right? Yeah, that says a lot, man, right there.
Yeah, so they have their own social ecology.
Yeah. Oh man.
I
So,
think,
Machine, did you bring up? Go ahead. Access was that access?
I think that even social media, such as traditional TV or even movies, kind of engineer a projection of people who are easily but not critically thinking are subjected to, and they kind of cerebrally adjust to that type of thinking subconsciously, and some even consciously, just by the influence of this man-made weather, media, news, social media, entertainment.
Yeah. So speaking on that, if Nietzsche saw our current social media cancel culture, yeah, do you think he would be a critique of that?
Well, I think Kierkegaard, and Nietzsche, and basically any existentialist, with a spine, would basically say that newspapers and the media are a net loss, right, for humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
I wonder what he would.
they railed against the newspapers too.
Well, I wonder what he would think about AI, Mr. Nietzsche.
Well,
about
I want to bring up something related to this because I think it might be a part of what you're saying. Really briefly. So the question is if because me and Machine already touched on and other people did the thing about slave morality versus master morality. So two questions. One, if everybody's a master, how can there be any slaves? And if that's the case, how could anything really function if everybody's just basically a bunch of wolves trying to eat each other? Secondly, if the other side of that would be, if all these things that we're seeing are part of the master morality that is being used against us, and they're functional of that morality, how do we discern between a good version of master morality and a bad version? So, like, how would we distinguish those things?
Good question.
I think he saw essentially that that there was always going to be sort of a prey, right, in a sense of the best type of person was always going to have their preys, right? They're going to prey upon the weaker type, right? So I mean, who he thinks benefits from that equation is literally just the people who are strong, they're rich, they're beautiful, they're healthy. They don't have to worry about the people who have no strength, no power. Actually, those people have to invent that these people who hunt them and cull their herd, if you will, right, and maintain them, for lack of a better term, right, are basically evil people, right, that they want to hurt them, right, and so on and so forth. Whereas Nietzsche says that, the birds of prey, they love nothing better than a fat lamb, a fat, well-behaved sheep or a lamb, whereas the sheep, they look at the birds of prey as the ones that are extremely efficient at killing as evil, right? So he thinks that there is no exchange, right? That they just have two different ways of looking at things, and they cannot be reconciled.
I think that's a great example of what we're going through with our administration and global governments right now.
So, Axis, do you think that the slave master morality is that why we're so polarized in politics today?
Yeah, the us, the or thems, the has, the have-nots, and once the have-nots are no longer useful as a worker race or an exploitable race, that's where I think technology comes in, robots, AI, advanced technologies, and suddenly these people are no more than fodder. And I'm kind of seeing that.
And I would argue, just to add on to that, I would argue that one of the biggest critiques I would have of the anti-tech side, and again, I'm not saying this any against machine or avian or anybody in particular, I'm saying this is something to be mindful of, is that most of the propaganda you see promoting against the system in general, I think it's the one blind side, I think, is like, it's kind of telling people to beg to be the slave so you don't outlive your usefulness, so therefore you won't be cold. So there's this kind of like weird, like, exit the matrix but still stay within the matrix so you don't get cold out of the matrix. So it's kind of like a weird dialectic, I think, that, and I don't know exactly how to frame it better than that, but I think you guys kind of know what I'm saying, and I think that's
I agree with you on that. You're being herded into this state of submission to the matrix by fear of obsolescence from the matrix.
And maybe my question is an example of this, Neurojack, like trying to be out of the matrix, but you're still not plugged into it, but you're still in it. Like, do you, like machine and everyone else, like, how do you think you can apply, how like a regular person working a 9-to-5 job can apply the will to power, and not be a jerk, for example?
Maybe
Yeah, go ahead, Buddha.
maybe they think the work they're doing isn't benefiting the society or anyone, but they still do it on their free time, or they find more value in creating art, and the creation of the art, it becomes their new value, and they don't care how people view them for creating the art or something. Like, it's more about creating the art because without compulsion, but because they just spontaneously yearn for it or something, and it gives them a sense of meaning in life where they can affirm all of life. The amor fati means that if you affirm one thing, you affirm all of the chain of causation or something like that.
That's a good point, because I can see that, because it brings me back to the Uberman concept and how, like, becoming who you are, like, I guess that's the best way I can see it, like, through discipline and creativity. You said art, like creativity, that is a way of making the most out of your situation, and making it self-mastery, man.
Yeah, I think Nietzsche would have really liked the mob films, right? Because they show sort of characters that have honor, that sort of follow rules within their own given, parameters, right, and excel in it, right? But they are within a network, right, that is sort of, not part of the greater society. They live a life that honors a sort of quality that most people don't honor within the society, right? So they have a sort of code that's of a higher nature, right? There's classier, they like finer things, right? And they're respected among other, gangsters and mobsters, right? So they, because of the way they follow the code, right? So I think that would, really appeal to Nietzsche, or at least one of my, university professors. Is kind of like what he said, right? That Nietzsche would enjoy that sort of gangster or mobster type of, persona, right?
And what you just said, in the Sopranos, Carmela Soprano, the mob boss's wife, she said, kind of leading up to what you're saying, in a sense, she said, like, the reason she was kind of justifying coping, one could say, the reason why she turns a blind eye to, like, the crimes he commits and whatnot, her husband. But she's like, my husband and our husbands, the other wives, they do the things, they do whatever it takes to provide for their family. And that's a turn on, and that's a very attractive trait. Like, notice she didn't say anything really about morality, but
you lost audio, brother.
Yeah, you cut out there.
Hello. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hear you now, yeah.
They'll do the men, our husbands will do whatever it takes to get, to provide for their family, and they thought that was an admirable thing, right? That was their morality.
This is why I think the female side of the species is a lot more brutal than people want to think. I mean, women are the first ones who want to dispose of ethics and morality when it comes to a
It's
lot of
convenient.
things, and I think it's really only men that believe in morality personally. But
Oh,
and
yeah.
again, I think this is why religion has structured to control that side of female nature, because it will, essentially destroy everything. And again, I'm not saying this against women at all. I just think it's a very good trait of humans. It's just something
Yeah, it
that
is.
you have to be aware of, I would say. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, that's a good
Oh,
point
yeah.
there. Good add-on. Dr. has practiced the will to power as the average person by going the goddamn speed limit in the face of chaos and mindless hustle culture, impulsive aggression. Stay out of the way, but pick your own pace. Interesting. Yeah. Yes. Machine, do you think this would be a good time? Maybe could you read the second section
Yeah, I
of the
got
poem?
you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got you, man. I'm about to blast
Okay.
you guys with this shit, man. This shit
Okay.
is actually one of my favorite parts of Thus Spoke Zarathustra. So it'll be my pleasure to read it for you guys as my coffee gets extremely cold. Right, but
Iced coffee.
yeah, exactly. So let me take a huge sip of it right now.
Let me take a huge rip of this Talcadian Kush and let me myself. Holy shit.
Talcadian Kush sounds pretty good, honestly. Go ahead.
Nick, peak Talcadian meth. There's that too as well. But we'll get to that later.
Sorry, I went to the wrong part real quick.
Yeah.
My bad. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah. Man.
I accidentally went to the appendix out here. Okay, here we go. Okay, the vision and the enigma, right? This is called, right? From Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It says, and this is the part about eternal recurrence, right? His theory about time. So it's extremely interesting because he's giving sort of one of his key metaphysical concepts, and adding that to the discussion here in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. So he says, okay, so I'll start here. He says, when it got broad among the sailors that Zarathustra was on board the ship, when it got abroad among the sailors that Zarathustra was on board a ship, for a man who came from the Happy Isles had gone on board along with him, there was great curiosity and expectation. But Zarathustra kept silent for 2 days and was cold and deaf with sadness, so that he neither answered nor looks nor questions. On the evening of the second day, however, he again opened his ears, though he still kept silent, for there were many curious and dangerous things to be heard on board that ship, which came from afar and was to go still further. Zarathustra, however, was fond of all those who make distant voyages and dislike to live without danger. And behold, when listening, his own tongue was at last loosened, and the ice of his heart broke. Then he began to speak thus: to you, the daring venturers and adventurers, and whoever hath embarked with cunning sails upon frightful seas, to you, the enigma intoxicated, the twilight enjoyers, whose souls are allured by fruits. Flutes, not fruits, right? Flutes to every treacherous gulf. Now, this is a key line. He says, for ye dislike to grope at a thread with a cowardly hand, for where ye can divine, there do ye hate to calculate. Where ye can divine, there do ye hate to calculate, he said. To you only do I tell the enigma that I saw, the vision of the lonesomest one. Gloomily walked I lately in corpse-colored twilight, gloomily and sternly with compressed lips. Not only one sun had set for me, and this is where he gets to the part about eternal recurrence. A path which ascended daringly among boulders, an evil, lonesome path, which neither herb nor shrub any longer cheered, a mountain path crunched under the daring of my foot, mutely marching over the scornful clinking of pebbles, trampling the stone that let it slip. Thus did my foot force its way upwards, in spite of the spirit that drew it downwards towards the abyss, the spirit of gravity, my devil and arch enemy, upwards, although it sat upon me, half dwarf, half mole, paralyzing, dripping lead in mine ear. Right. And thoughts like drops of lead into my brain. O Zarathustra, it whispered scornfully, syllable by syllable, thou stone of wisdom, thou threwest thyself high, but every stone must fall. O Zarathustra, thou stone of wisdom, thou slingstone, thou star destroyer, thyself threwest thou so high, but every thrown stone must fall, condemned of thyself to thine own stoning. O Zarathustra, far indeed threwest thou thy stone, but upon thyself will it recoil. Then was the dwarf silent, and it lasted long. The silence, however, oppressed me. And to be thus in pairs, one is verily lonesomer than when alone. I ascended, I dreamt, I thought, but everything oppressed me. A sick one did I resemble, whom bad torture wearieth, and a worse dream reawakeneth out of his first sleep. But there is something in me which I call courage. It hath hitherto slain for me every dejection. This courage at last bade me stand still and say, dwarf thou or I. For courage is the best slayer, courage which attacketh. For in every attack there is a sound of triumph. Man, however, is the most courageous animal. Thereby hath he overcome every animal. With sound of triumph hath he overcome every pain. Human pain, however, is the sorest pain. Courage slayeth also giddiness at abysses. And where doth man not stand at abysses? I see, is not seeing itself seeing abysses? He says, courage is the best slayer. Courage slayeth also fellow suffering. Fellow suffering, however, is the deepest abyss. As deeply as man looketh into life, so deeply also doth he look into suffering. Courage, however, is the best slayer. Courage which attacketh, it slayeth even death itself. For it saith, was that life? Well, once more. In such speech, however, there is much sound of triumph. He who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Halt, dwarf. Yeah, play that music back there. That was a good build. Halt, dwarf, said I. Either I or thou. I, however, am the stronger of the two. Thou knowest not mine abysmal thought. It couldst thou not endure. Then happened that which made me lighter, for the dwarf sprang from my shoulder, the prying sprite, and it squatted on a stone in front of me. There was, however, a gateway just where we halted. Look at this gateway, dwarf, I continued. It had two faces. Two roads come together here. These hath no one yet gone to the end of. This long lane backwards it continueth for an eternity, and that long lane forward, that is another eternity. They are antithetical to one another, these two roads. They directly abut on one another. But it is here, at this gateway, that they come together. The name of this gateway is inscribed above, this moment. But should one follow them further, and even further and further on, thinkest thou, dwarf, that these roads would be eternally antithetical? Everything straight lieth, murmureth the dwarf contemptuously. All truth is crooked. Time itself is a circle. Thou spirit of gravity, said I wrathfully, do not take it too lightly, or I shall let thee squat where thou squattest, halt foot. And I carried thee high. Observe, continued I, this moment from the gateway, this moment there runneth a long eternal lane backwards. Behind us lieth an eternity. Must not whatever can run its course of all things have already run along that lane? Must not whatever can happen of all things have already happened, resulted, and gone by? And if everything have already existed, what thinkest thou, dwarf, of this moment? Must not this gateway also have existed? And are not all things closely bound together in such wise that this moment draweth all coming things after it? Consequently, itself also. For whatever can run its course of all things, also in this long lane outwards must it once more run. And this slow spider which creepeth in the moonlight, and this moonlight itself, and thou and I, and this gateway whispering together, whispering of eternal things, must we not have already existed? And must we not return and run in the other lane out before us, that long wired lane? Must we not eternally run? Thus did I speak, always more softly, for I was afraid of mine own thoughts and arrear thoughts. Then suddenly did I hear a dog howl near me. Had I ever heard a dog howl thus? My thoughts ran back, yes, when I was a child in my most distant childhood. Then did I hear a dog howl thus, and saw it too with hair bristling its head upwards, trembling in the stillest midnight, when even dogs believe in ghosts, so that it excited my commiseration. For just when, for then went the full moon, silent as death over the house. Just then did it stand still, a glowing globe, at rest on flat foot, as if someone's property. There's only a little bit left. Thereby had the dog been terrified, for dogs believe in thieves and ghosts. And when I again heard such howling, then did it excite my commiseration once more. Where was now the dwarf, and the gateway, and the spider, and all the whispering? Had I dreamt? Had I awakened? Twixt rugged rocks did I suddenly stand alone, dreary in the dreariest moonlight. But there lay a man, and there the dog leaping, bristling, whining. Now did it see me coming, and did it howl again, then did it cry. Had I ever heard a dog cry for help? And verily what I saw, the like had I never seen. A young shepherd did I see, writhing, choking, quivering in distorted countenance, and with heavy black serpent hanging out of his mouth. Had I ever seen so much loathing and pale horror on one countenance? He had perhaps gone to sleep. Then had the serpent crawled into his throat. There had it bitten itself fast. My hand pulled at the serpent and pulled in vain. I failed to pull the serpent out of his throat. And there cried out for me, bite, bite, its head off, bite. So cried it out of me. My horror, my hatred, my loathing, my pity, all my good and my bad cried with one voice out of me. Ye daring ones around me, ye venturers and adventurers, and whoever of you have embarked with cunning sails on unexplored seas, ye enigma enjoyers, solve unto me the enigma that I then beheld, interpret unto me the vision of the lonesomest one. For it was a vision and a foresight. What did I then behold in parable? And who is it that must come someday? Who is the shepherd into whose throat the serpent thus crawled? Who is the man whose throat is the heaviest and blackest, and will it crawl? The shepherd, however, bit as my cry had admonished him. He bit with a strong bite far away. He had spit the head of the serpent and sprang up, no longer shepherd, no longer man, a transfigured being, a light-surrounded being that laughed. Never on earth laughed a man as he laughed. Oh, my brethren, I heard the laughter which was no human laughter. And now gnaweth a thirst at me, a longing that is never allayed. My longing for that which laughter gnaweth at me. Oh, how can I still endure to live? And how could I endure to die at present? Thus spoke Zarathustra. So that's the longest one I got. But yeah, pretty epic for sure.
Fire. Yo.
And I'm
blown
sorry,
away, bro.
I cannot see the screen as good as I want to. So I'm really apologize for that. But yeah, the text is very small. I have to really get up on the face of my computer. So I apologize for the mistake.
That was a great rendition and a great orator of that, bro. I felt it, man.
Yeah, it's written like an older English.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like you're standing up on the highest mountain, like yelling at the sky, like the background, you know.
Oh, one of my poetry teachers admonished me for reading poetry lazily one day. So
maybe you could come and talk to my class about that when we read, because I want that passion. There's a couple of them to get it, but it makes such a big difference.
Oh yeah, I see.
You know, yeah, man. Like he seems like he's really attacking the or just trying to wake up the last man with this. You know,
well, I like the whole idea where he's talking about how time is not a circle, right? He's really opposed to that idea. He's saying back this way and forward this way is an eternity where everything that can happen has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So this moment represents all of eternity, right? So
Lindsay said you did great, by the way.
Yeah, blessings, Lindsay. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So you said it's not. He said it's not a circle, or time machine.
Yeah, that's what the dwarf, the spirit of gravity, is trying to say to him, right?
Mm-hmm. Spirit of gravity. Okay. Yeah. So like these same things are. I mean, we're in a loop. We have to use that word here in the panel verse a lot. People say loop.
Well, that's what he's trying to avoid, right? The loop, right? He's saying that this moment is constantly being renewed because before us and in front of us, there's constant. See, this is a sort of Heraclitus idea, right? That becoming is the true essence of reality, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying that all moments are sort of fundamentally opposed, but it's the same recurrent moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no change, right? In a sense, but in a sense, no moment is like any other moment. It's totally unique.
Wow.
Right, so there's not only uniqueness, but there's continuity, change, and everything. Right, so
that's interesting, dude. He has these contradictions. I'm sure, like most writers do, that are worth their weight in gold. But like, that's why it's interesting. Like it makes me to think about how Nietzsche kind of hated. That seemed like he hated the quote unquote herd, but he also wrote for everyone and no one. So who would you say his target audience is?
I think definitely he's speaking to, he's giving a critique of culture and religion and philosophy, right? So I think he's speaking to the heart of the European. I think it's a culmination of, like the Enlightenment, Romanticism and the Protestant Reformation, and of course his understanding of how basically he thought that the democratic spirit is the heir of the Christian spirit. And this is almost a direct quote from him, right? So he basically thought that, that democratic and liberal ideals were founded by the Jews and Plato, and that these are sort of ancient values, right, that have preceded to create the system that sort of devalues man, devalues the people in favor of the state, right, and sort of prizes, sort of conformity, right?
I think he kind of pokes at the ideal just to initiate a critical state of mind and observation to the surrounding environment, especially where, the church and the democratic or liberal state of mind is inherent in it.
Axis, do you think that's why people associate Nietzsche with nihilism?
Yeah, I could see that.
But he seemed like he hated it, huh? Like how did he plan to cure that? Like
maybe redevelopment. I mean, maybe if he, by poking the entity itself, he could bring around a facet of critical thought that might observe it for what it is and then restructure something without directly influencing it.
Smart. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you want to call it patience or what, but people, at least the ones that I've been engaging with sometimes, they don't seem to have the patience or zoom out ability to do that, because they think that, like, sometimes when we bring up an idea, they think that I, for example, I prescribe to that, when in fact I'm just kind of, like, as you say, trying to poke the bear, see what we have here, kick the tires around, and then go from there, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Aiden, you have any thoughts?
Nietzsche, based on what my friend said, he wrote for free spirits, for intellectual aristocracy. You know, he criticized the herd mentality, like you guys were talking about. He believed most
Yeah, your audio got really shitty now, Buddha. Barely hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
That's better.
Better now. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. He believed that he wrote for free spirits, and those are the kind of intellectual aristocracy, you know, not the masses, like my friend told me. And, you know, he criticized the herd mentality and conformity of ready-made values and stuff like that. So it wasn't really about social class for him, but it was about the man who's willing to create his own values and stand apart from the crowd.
Yeah, that sounds like someone that's like the opposite. Like the last man probably would be obsessed with like safety and comfort, whereas what you're talking about, Buddha, is like kind of with Nietzsche. I think I read this quote yesterday about, he's talking about living dangerously. You know, do you think that's a good advice? Live dangerously in these days and age.
Let me see. For me personally, no. Of course not for me. No, I'm not that.
For you.
Yeah, not for me. Yeah. You go. You know, it's not like. Yeah. I personally wouldn't want to live dangerously. Like, I don't want to go lose my property and then be homeless. You know, it's not really pleasant. You know, like I mean, I was close to that sometimes, but it's not pleasant. You know. Yeah. So I think being cautious and it's kind of necessary in life. So, but I do think it's good to keep your values strong. Yeah, not feel like you have to conform to the herd. So, but it's still good to be cautious. Yeah.
If I could give a quick analogy of that, is the character in a Nietzsche type way. The people on like social media, especially here on YouTube, they complain about the state of YouTube, you know.
Yeah.
But yet, when I come along, and I am an extreme variable in this, which does not represent the person Glenn Monday, it's the character Axis Red-Blood, and I poke them and try to bring some understanding to, you know, okay, you're complaining, you're being resistant, you're throwing your fits. Now I'm poking you with a potential that is so abstract and monstrous, but yet you're not willing to recognize, you know, your own ability to restructure yourself or the environment you're in.
Maybe that's why, like Nietzsche access, that like sometimes I'll just say, like, what you have to share for a lot of folks, like you mentioned, is it's a hard pill to swallow, just like how Nietzsche's work can be for people, you know. But what would your advice be for people who are trying to know you and where you're coming from, and also like people who are trying to read Nietzsche, if it is a hard pill to swallow for them, this like upfrontness of reality that you guys share to give people?
I try not to force it on them. I just present the ideal of the monstrous abstract and watch them react. And instead of reacting with a spark of critical thought to a potential, they resort back to clannish and even reinforce the negativity that they seem to be so offended by. So I'm taking an observatory look instead of an interactive role, other than what I produce as, you know, a provoking entity.
Let's see, almost mirroring what they're putting at you, so they can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, intensify. Marilyn says, truth and reality still exists. We are headed towards advancement. Any thoughts, Neurojack? Chris Rasta? Any panel? Machine Lies?
Yeah, definitely. You know, yeah, there's no way that yeah, you could discount, you know, that these things are, you know, basically in charge, right? That basically, like, I mean, I believe good will win out over evil, that falsehood will basically disappear. You know, it's basically just defeat itself, you know, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Did you bring up the eternal resonance, occurrence? You did that earlier, right, Machine?
Yeah.
Eternal, like,
Yeah, that was the point of bringing up this last reading. The vision and the
Yeah.
enigma from Thus Spoke Zarathustra was to outline his idea of eternal recurrence and how it's more of a Heraclitus flavor, right? That the road up and the road down are the same, right? You know, as Heraclitus says, right? You know, he's kind of going with this idea that there's two roads and both of them go on forever. They're eternal, and you're kind of in the middle of them in a moment called now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the question I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about the eternal resonance. About it's like a vibe check. Like for example, if you guys had to live this exact life that you're living now over and over again, would you be happy with it?
No, absolutely not. No. No.
Yeah, because I mean it goes with what you're saying, Machine, about the loop, or I call it a loop, about how you said that Nietzsche said we're living this, you know.
Yeah,
over
I'm
again.
on that Groundhog's Day. You know,
Yeah.
definitely. If you splice up time into smaller and smaller portions, I would be way better at living that moment. And right,
A moment.
yeah, I'd become a
Yeah.
master. You know, if you could master a day, you could master eternity.
See-
You know, on that Bill Murray tip.
You're right. And remember, a lot of things happened in that one day, though. When you think about it, for him,
Yeah.
like Chris Ross, like he lived a fucking amazing like life, like with a lot of novelty and different things happening, cool things. What about you, Chris? Do you think if you had to live, if this life you're living in now, like over and over again, would you be happy with it?
I think we got to learn how to be happy wherever we're at.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Do I wish for a better life? Yes, but would I do it all over again? No. If I did have a chance to do it all over again, would I do it different? Probably. You know, but you know, I beat another case on my own on 420 for cannabis and herb, and just
Congratulations.
thanks, brother. We're the first in America to be recognized as what we're doing, and so when a lot of people kept telling me no or kept telling me to sign and everything, you go in these dark places, but you need dark places to grow. That's what
right. Yeah, you know? That's what I mean. You're not being the last man, like the ordinary man. You're being that Superman, Uberman. You're like standing at the abyss where most people just stand and look, but you actually jumped in there and came out the other end. You still said it's doing good. Yeah. That's great news, because like I'm glad you shared that, Chris, because on a big scale level, that was the big day. Because remember the whole Joe Rogan, Donald Trump psychedelic bill, like on the same day. But that's cool and all, but this is great. Like someone I actually know, someone that's blessed my panel, actually fought for his rights, and he stood on business, and it worked out. So that's super cool, bro.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just if I could do it, I'm not saying just this. I'm just saying anything. If I could do it, whatever your dream is, just stick with it, no matter how hard it gets. You know. So, but here's my dismissal on my own. No attorney.
Damn. Receipts right there. Yeah.
Very nice.
That's great, brother. Yeah.
But well, if I hang up, I'm still gonna listen to you guys. I just gotta clean up the shop, and you guys are up there, so we're gonna be listening to you all here. So.
All right. Okay, you remind me. You bless me. I'm a Cali guy, so thank you for tapping in. It makes me miss home. Appreciate you, man. Don't be a stranger, okay? I'm in Taiwan. In Taiwan.
Oh, dude. Nice.
Yeah. So we're worldwide, man.
Sweet. Good to chat with you all, and you all have a blessed night, man, or day.
Yeah, peace, Rasta.
Much
Yeah,
love,
good-
brother.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
Congratulations, man. Enjoy.
You all too. Peace.
Good news. Hey, we got the good news. That's good. Yeah, that's the thing about the Zoroaster thing. Like in the poem, I think he said something about standing at the abyss, right? Well, most people just stand there, right? And just look. They don't do
Yeah,
nothing.
that's what he said. Yeah, that they're like,
Yeah.
they're stuck.
I've been guilty. I'm getting better at that, but that's definitely been a place. Definitely been a place. Yeah. Yeah. If you can ask Nietzsche one question, I would say have a beer with him, but I heard like he liked strong tea. If you could have like a drink with him, what would you ask him? I'm curious. What would you ask him, or would you just listen?
I definitely ask him a lot of questions about like the philosophers that he read, right? Like some of those lines that he says, like in his works, right? Like Ecce Homo, right? He's kind of saying like basically like look like like I learned a lot from like Plato and Rousseau and like Schopenhauer. And of course, he's really against the idea of pity and against the idea of morality and all of these things, in due time. So I would kind of like venture to ask what he learned from them. Obviously, we have some interesting discussions about religion and his sort of mythicism, right? And his entire concept about how, the Jays sort of took down the Roman Empire. Right, which a writer by the name of Edward Gibbon sort of repeated this theory, right? So it's had a huge influence on today's thinkers, right? So much so that there's been sort of pro-Zionist thinkers that have developed the idea that Rome actually invented Christianity to weaken the Jayish revolt against Rome. Right, so they've sort of inverted his entire thesis as well, right? So,
wow.
So there's some important historical queries and things and debates that I think it would be interesting to get his take on. And
yeah,
I would be interested in knowing what his original inspirational motivation for taking the path of resistance.
That's a great question to hear out of his mouth, not what we heard others theorize and whatnot, huh?
Right.
That's a great question too. That's a great question because, like, I mean, I learned like a couple months ago that his father was a pastor, and he ended up passing away when he was very young, and then not too long after that, Nietzsche's brother passed away too. So I could see why someone could be very bitter and disheartened about his faith when something like that happens.
Yeah, what's really interesting about Kant and Rousseau and Nietzsche is that their fathers, were sort of like clergymen and sort of, so to speak. So they're like preachers, right? So it's kind of interesting how that whole thing develops, right? Because,
Crowley too, right? Aleister Crowley, his father too.
Crowley was part of the Plymouth Brethren, so he was raised in a dispensationalist organization, right? That was started by John Nelson Darby. So it's interesting.
Mr. Reddington says our reason has the particular fact that, with reference to one class of his knowledge, it always has troubled by questions which it cannot ignore because they are prescribed by the very nature of reason itself, and which it cannot answer because they transcend the power of human reason. Can't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's something I would definitely ask Nietzsche. Is very similar to Machine. I would say, what's your historical take? One, what's your occult take? Two, and then I would say something like what Reddington said, which is like, what's your opinion on Descartes and the role of reason in all your work? Because I see him as anti-reason personally, but I don't know if anybody else would agree with me on that. But what do you guys think about his take on reason?
Well, that's why I said I think he took, at one point in time, he made the decision by some influence to take the path of resistance instead of the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. And what sparked that moment? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean specifically against reason. I think he was specifically against like the age of reason, as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Machine, didn't you send me a little short video about his logic or reason? Nietzsche's take? You did. I mean, look. I'm correct. Maybe it's here, I'll play it. I think this is it. Oh no, this is on human progress. Okay. But back to Neurojack's question. About his take. What is his take on reason? What is Nietzsche's take?
Yeah, like I was saying, he wasn't opposed to reason in general, but he was opposed to sort of a universalism that would sort of flatten out all human thought and ideas, right? So he was really against idealism, right? So so where reason tends towards idealism and universalism, I think he would really oppose it. Right, but before that, I think he'd be absolutely for a sort of practical reason and sensibility, right? Against like just a general just baseness and stupidity, right? He thinks that those things are not good, right?
This yeah. Speaking of baseness, look at these Batman ears on this avatar. Is that you, XS? Is this you? This is wild. This avatar.
No. That's void. I'm the dark sun.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, can I ask you what's? I've seen that symbol. What is the significance for you and for us that the dark sun symbol?
Well, it's an eclipsing of the light. It's kind of an acceptance of the darker aspect in a Jungian sense, but done with natural occurrences.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Hard. It's hard. I see that symbolism in the new Dune when they show Giddy Prime. This image. Yeah.
I would also ask him about his take on women. I think Nietzsche must have had a very interesting relationship with women. Pretty sure.
Yeah. There's been black pill takes on his views about how. Yeah, that's part of his motivation was because he was obsessing over one of his students, I think, one of the grad students. One of the students he was teaching, and supposedly, like one of his friend was. He told him, Nietzsche was like, "I got to go to this other school or whatever. Can you look after her?" Well, he looked after her all right. Like when he came back, they were an item. And like some of these theories are like he was that red pill rage for a minute, but yeah, I don't know. We hear that he liked prostitutes, right? But that tells you something about him, but that doesn't necessarily tell you his views on women in general, right? So, any thoughts? Anybody know about that? About his thoughts on women?
Not specifically on. I couldn't speak for the man's take on.
Yeah, for sure.
But
what is known?
Yeah, but by observation, he wasn't beyond, hedonistic fulfillment.
Say that again.
He wasn't beyond hedonistic self-fulfillment.
For sure. Yeah. Women. Let me see what comes up real quick. We put this.
Yeah,
quick
he
search.
had he had his heart broken by a lady who was talking to
his buddy, right?
I believe her her name was Lou Andrea Salome or something like that. Right. And she kind of denied his advances, right? And also it's questionable how he actually got syphilis, but he actually at some point got syphilis, right? Which drove him to madness, right? And there was like a man like beating his horse, and then he like threw his arms around the horse and told the man to stop, and he collapsed. Then he went into a fit of madness. He was taken care of by his sister. Right, so there's actually a question of what works Nietzsche composed under the spell of madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to say something quickly. What's interesting is that in the Gathas, which go back to Zoroaster, Zoroaster, he actually he created his moral dualism from seeing cattle abuse. You know what I mean? And so cattle abuse during the steppe raids, they actually led him to create a kind of moral dualism and a kind of dualistic theism or something like that. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what Machine said about him putting his hands around the horse, and then you said earlier, I mean, that dualism theory was based on him, animals getting slaughtered.
Sorry to interrupt you, but also within Mithraism and stuff and all this, there's all like the bull riding and like slaughtering the bull, and Judaism has a big emphasis on cattle, and they were worshiping a golden calf. So there is definitely something with the symbol of the cow and Hinduism and everything. So I was wondering, do you guys know specifically like what the connection with all these religions?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, go ahead. I'll go after that.
And the Proto-Indo-Europeans or the Aryans on the steppes, they had a myth of a primordial cow or bovine that is slaughtered, and from his corpse the universe is created, or from his semen in a mixing bowl and stuff like that. But the thing about Zoroaster is he lived during cattle raids of the steppe people, so he was against the sacrifice of cattle and horses. But the Mithraists, which are older than the Zoroastrians, they actually, Cyrus or Kurosh, he was probably a Mithraist, because on his tomb or somewhere else, I forgot, he wanted annual sacrifices of cattle to his tomb, which is actually not something the Zoroastrians wanted. So the idea is that Cyrus could have been a Mithraist, because he was pro sacrifice of cattle, whereas the Zoroastrians were not pro sacrifice of cattle.
Yeah. Well, technically, astrologically, we're in the month of Taurus, the season of Taurus right now. We just got into it, right? So and traditionally, that Taurus symbolizes, people are comfort and all this stuff, but what I see it is stability, being grounded in the earth, being grounded in what you're in, and luxury for sure, but security, right? The second house is Taurus, security, man. So I think maybe that's why a lot of these cultures and nations had that bull as a symbol, security and all that type of stuff. But back to Nietzsche's mental collapse. Do you think that because of that later mental collapse does it change how we look at Nietzsche? You know what I mean? You think that should be held into account, or that doesn't, or just makes him for who he is?
I think it makes him more credible, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think Schopenhauer is right that the line between madness and genius is really not all that, defined, right? Because a genius just means that we don't know how they did it, right? So basically, until somebody gets to the way that the genius accomplished his way, right, then it no longer becomes genius anymore, right? So this is the thing, is like, concealing a means to a particular end, right? That's kind of like magic, technology, genius, madness, right?
Yeah. Well, do you think that Elizabeth, his sister, if she did actually twist his work, do you think that that's part of the reason some people have some misconception about his work? Like, what are the theories out there about what she changed? Might have twisted.
Well,
Machine.
Well, there was one particular work called "The Will to Power," which was posthumously released in conjunction with her her husband, right? So her husband was part of the Yahtzee party, right? I won't say the name, right? But he was part of
Yeah, got
Small
it.
Mustache Man's crew, right? And basically, like this guy, the Small Mustache guy, right? He had a bust of of Nietzsche, right? So he took so he saw Nietzsche as sort of a hero, right? So this is all historical, right? But of course,
Yeah.
right, the founders of the French Revolution, right, they saw Rousseau as their hero, right? The founders of the American Revolution saw Locke as their hero, right? So it's not really that much of a stretch, right? They put philosophers as their sort of heroes, even though they didn't really sometimes follow exactly what they said.
Right. Well, I mean, talking about heroes and philosophers, I guess, like, to me, I guess one, like I told you, I like Machiavelli philosophy. A lot of the stuff he had to say. One of the reasons I like him too is because he doesn't dwell too much in the metaphysics, if at all, right? Really, he doesn't talk about metaphysics, and to segue to Nietzsche, he seemed to like reject the idea of living for an afterlife, like how people were doing before, you know, but he did. We talked about it a little bit earlier. He seemed to value Earth and what you're doing here now. Do you think that's important? Because a lot of people can tend to get into escapism with some of these religions about over fixating in the afterlife instead of, like, you know, really being present in the moment in our physical bodies here in our own environment.
I personally, Machiavellianism is a useful tool for me. But, you know, it's more of a tool.
Yeah.
More than it is a philosophy or
a way of life. That'd be too much, right?
Right.
Yeah. But it does have its place, you're saying, for you. Yeah.
Oh,
Time
yeah.
and place, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Axis brings up a great point, because I think I mean, it's been said by many people that Nietzsche was sort of a student of Machiavelli, right? And he sort of really understood Machiavelli's points, especially his points about the armed prophets, right, and so on and so forth, right? And his attitude towards certain religious officials. I mean, also, you know, his sort of ambivalence towards certain religious reformers of his own time. So actually Machiavelli wrote quite a bit on that, and Nietzsche followed his idea that a lot of the morals were sort of fossilized violence, right? That had so most morality is based on sort of the memory of violence that occurred in the past, right? So this was his sort of idea, that morals are a fossilized violence that has persisted throughout the ages, and a sort of distrust, right, towards our fellow man, and so on and so forth, and so it culminates in this idea, right?
Right. Yeah. Machine, what would you suggest someone should get to if they really want to get Nietzsche? Like, after reading Thus Spoke Zarathustra, what's another book that could get you there?
Well, I think that the two top books that I would basically get people to read is the Antichrist and Twilight of the Idols, and there's many cases where you could buy both in one conjunction, right? Of like a two part, like 2-in-1 book, right? Yeah, so there are like sort of copies that exist with Twilight of the Idols and Antichrist, right, together, right? So the Antichrist is sort of his idea about the Bible and why the Bible he thinks is false, right? So he sort of talks about his concept of the Antichrist, right? And he says he himself is the Antichrist, right? Of this age, right? And so to speak, meaning that he's sort of you know, taking part in this reevaluation of values that he says that Paul, the apostle, accomplished in Rome, right? So he says that Paul the Apostle was such a pivotal figure that he turned all existing valuations of morality on their head.
Mm.
And
Damn.
and he basically
man.
said that the poor, the weak, and all those people are basically blessed by God, right? And that God is love and all these types of things.
Yeah.
Right? So Nietzsche really opposes this understanding. He thinks that the God of the Old Testament is really more true, right? He thinks that that God is wrathful, vengeful, jealous, so on and so forth, right? He thinks that this is a more accurate description of God, and so on and so forth.
Probably kind of took the same approach, but in a different direction.
Yeah, and then in his other work, Twilight of the Idols, he says how Plato is basically using Socrates to do the same thing, to make the person that's being persecuted and the victim the person who's actually strong and the hero, right? So he says that that Plato is sort of accomplishing the same thing on a pre-Christian level, and so when Plato and Christianity merge, right? As he says in the preamble of Beyond Good and Evil, that Christianity is the Platonism of the people, right? So he thinks that Plato and Christianity merge to accomplish the slave revolt, right? And the total revaluation of values, which he sees as exemplified by Paul the Apostle, right? Who is both Jewish and Roman, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't see him as
a way of doing things.
He doesn't see that as a bad thing per se. He's seeing it just as for what it is, essentially.
Oh yeah, he thinks the same thing needs to be done again. He thinks he's doing the same thing that Paul's doing, right? It says revaluation of values, right? Or transvaluation of values, as Buddha said, right?
I was saying earlier, Mike cut out. I think like that when you're describing the God of the Old Testament, it sounded like a man, not nothing spooky, not nothing supernatural or anything. When those attributes that you said. This guy has a funny comment right here. He says, Jake Allen says, philosophy is feminine and liberal. That's a very general statement. Huh?
Yeah, that's one of our OG homies. Yeah, Jake Allen. Yeah, he's the homie, for sure.
And I would like to hit on that for a second. Is they did take a incomprehensible deity and humanize him.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not good enough for some people just to be saying like, "Hey, I guess there's some things that we just can't know or fathom or whatever." Yeah.
Right. So they bring it into relevancy by humanizing it, and then they put attributes to it to make it more acceptably humanized.
Yeah. When in fact it makes it a little bit more creepy. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I talked about this quite a bit on the show, right? It goes back to a saying of Athanasius, right? He says that I'm saying Athanasius, right? He says that in order for God to become in order for man to become God, God has to become man. Right?
Okay.
Paraphrase, right? So so this relates to a number of ideas in ancient times, right, about how man is made in the image of God, right, and also sort of anthropomorphized deities, right? That the pagans had created, right? And so on and so forth. So there was all of these concepts and ideas, right? And of course, the sophist philosopher Protagoras had said that man is the measure of all things. Of course, Nietzsche was sort of a great humanistic philosopher, right? And he sort of thought that leftism, collectivism, modernism, Darwinism, Kantian philosophy, that these things sort of generalized man too much, right, and sort of created a too much of an abstract notion of man, and they were sort of anti-humanistic, right?
Right. And I mean, this sounds like I like fun. Fun is fun. Fun is fun, especially when most of my life is supposedly serious or whatever. Yeah, I like the idea that Nietzsche like about creating the self, about like making your way out there, even if it seems like a mundane life you're living. But in actuality, you have a lot of choices you can make in that so-called mundane overlay. Yeah, creating
Yeah,
the self. Yeah.
I'll say this really briefly too. Like, don't believe most that you hear about Nietzsche. I would say that like Machine has the best analysis I've ever heard, and I'm not just saying that because I'm friends with him. Like, if you most things you listen to about Nietzsche, I think are just horrible bastardizations of what he was saying based on my own reading. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong, but like especially if you look at people like Uber Boyo and people like this, they're doing very injustice. I think a lot of people have done a lot of injustice to what Nietzsche said, and yeah.
No, I agree. If anything, like I've watched those videos that you said, those people, like Machine brings it to life. He's making them alive. Now, whether someone agrees with them, what Nietzsche did or not, the point is he's making them come off the page, come off the screen, and I like that. Yeah, and I actually, he seems like a fucking person I would want to have a beer with or talk to. It's just so. Hey, he gets a thumbs up from me. I'm like that with Freud. I know a lot of people. It's not. A lot of people don't. They don't like nowadays. They prefer Jung and all this stuff. But I like. I like. That's another story. I like.
I want to
Freud.
say that. I want to say that I like Freud a lot too. I think Freud is like. I think he's very underrated in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, but but thank you for bringing that up. Shout out to Machine. We'll give you your flowers right now. Like I appreciate your take on this Machine and your nuance and detail that you bring to it.
Well, if it's any consolation, this is the only channel where I can present myself as Glenn Monday and not the character Axis Rat Blood, and be amongst like-minded people who are in the pursuit of something more than what generally is given by the media sources of social platforming.
Yeah. And by the way, I'll give you your flowers too, Axis, because this has been a really wonderful build I've had with you and other guys, especially you. I appreciate you. And and it's not only Machine, this is my channel too. So Machine's on his channel. So you're now NPC. This is another place where you can feel free to be as you are, Mr. Monday.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Very much. Yeah. It's a very rare platform that you can do that on.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I had to shout out to Tarek because he had the last time I've been listening to him, he always has like such great things to say about you. So I was like, and I can see it. I can see why he liked you. Hopefully, you guys are still cool. I don't know how things go nowadays. Everything's changing a lot. Well, that's good. Yeah, but he had like a lot of great things to say about you, and I see it. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Tarek behind the scenes have very in-depth conversations, but up front he understands what I'm doing by kind of poking the media bear and those that are participating in it but yet complaining about it. So he catches on to that.
Yeah, that is funny how the people that are complaining are a part of it. It's that loop. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna get going. I got some marks I gotta do. But yeah, thank you for coming up. And Machine, blessing. We continue over. Are you still gonna go, right, Machine? Your spot.
Yeah, we got more on Nietzsche and philosophy and the revolt against the modern world. The revolt against the mythos of progress, right? And the clown matrix, right, over at the Machine Lives channel. So if you guys want to come check it out, feel free. No pressure.
I put the link in the chat as we speak.
Yeah, we're
you guys
not
hop over there.
We're not in it to be viewed and for the fame or anything like that. We're just here to have a good discussion. So, we're not any characters or part of any online groups. So come and have a conversation with us because I'd really like that very much. Blessings to all of you.
Yeah, Gabriel, it's been a pleasure, man. It's absolute been a pleasure to interact with you and to finally get to panel with you.
Yeah, man, and please don't be a stranger. We value your wisdom and your takes, Mr. Monday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. And Avian Buddha, we appreciate you, all your wisdom and your shares. And I'll be talking to you soon in the DM, Avian.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great stream. I have a friend who knows a lot about Nietzsche. He talks a lot with me. Yeah. So,
Well, he must be a good friend because he definitely solidified it in you. You were making those shares, coming up with stuff I never even heard about Nietzsche. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. And
thank you for the great stream. Thank you.
No problem. As always, we do it because for the good conversations, and if we can have fun and learn, even better. So this is Machine Lies. Appreciate you, bro. So I'm gonna go over there and tune into you while I get ready for class and whatnot. Yeah, and shout out to Ben, my son. Happy birthday, 8 years old.
Happy birthday!
Right. Thank you, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
happy birthday, Ben.
yeah. So these are some of Dad's friends, Ben. So when you get older, if you time travel, listen to this.
Oh yeah, this one's gonna be a top
These are the
priority.
unks. Yeah, exactly.
This episode is gonna be a top priority. Put this one on the top of the list for sure.
Right. Uncle Rat Blood, Uncle Machine Lies, and Uncle Buddha. All right. We'll see you guys. Appreciate you in the chat. Love you, Wiccan, Markella, Buddha, Lizard, everybody, Dr. Head. We'll see you, and don't stop the dance, guys. Peace.
Right.
Nietzsche, this has been Nietzsche. Look. Machine Lies.